I don't see any elected officials at this time. I will call the Paulding County Board of Commissioners work session for July the 26th to order. Brian, if you have anyone who's signed up, bring that forward, please. So I will call the, do that first. Okay, I thought we'd just include that when we got to the new business, like it's on the agenda. Thanks for the correction. I'll call the public hearing to order, and the first order of business there is our finance director, Tabitha Pollard, who is going to give us a briefing. Thank you, Tabitha.
What a way to start the morning, right? I have a little different screen than you do, so I'll use yours. Every year, this time of year, we have to do 3 public hearings if you are going to have a tax increase. And a tax increase, we'll get into the definition of that. It's made up of 2 different pieces. The idea is if the ending tax levy is going to be more than the previous year tax levy, then it qualifies as a tax increase. So that's what we're here today to do. We have advertised. We will have this public hearing. We will have a public hearing at 6 o'clock this evening, and we will have another public hearing at 9:30, I believe, on the 14th. And then we will adopt at 2 p.m. on the 14th. So in doing that, for those, most in the room probably already know, but definitions that you need to be aware of are assessed value. So our tax assessors goes out and gets a value of your home, fair market price. Taxes are assessed on 40% of that actual value. Your gross digest, which is the digest, 100% of the digest, that 40% of that value, is what we're looking at today. The net tax digest is 40% minus exemptions. So those are your homestead exemptions. Those are your exemptions over 65. Whatever exemptions, they're different for each individual, depending on their specific circumstances. The millage rate is $1 per $1,000 of assessed value. So it's expressed in terms of thousands and times the assessed value. So if you have an increase to your assessed value, what the law says is you have to have a reduction in your millage rate to equal the same tax levy from reassessments as you had in the previous year. If you have a decrease in your assessed value and you increase your millage rate, you can't go over what your tax levy would have been for the previous year. So we've advertised 5-year history. This gives you an idea of what's happened with the digest over the last 5 years. And at the bottom, it gives you the net tax increase. So for 2018, to the far right side, you'll see 2.5 million increase over previous year's net levy, or the total tax levy. The rollback rate. So as I mentioned before, you have 2 pieces: the assessed value, your millage rate. The millage rate is calculated. We're required by the Taxpayer Bill of Rights to roll back that millage rate to something that would equal the tax levy for last year had reassessments not occurred. And that's the rollback rate. If you're going to impose anything above the rollback rate, you're required to hold these 3 public hearings, submit your advertise to the public, hold 3 public hearings in order to do that. We've also advertised, this was our advertisement for the notice of property tax increase. 6.93%, this is an amount to the total digest. So calculated at 6.5 would equal a 6.93. At 6.93% increase. Again, that's in total, so it may differ for each individual. And it discusses when and where our public hearings are going to be held. And it gives the value of what this means to the homeowner. So if you have a fair market value of $150,000, we'll go through a more detailed explanation in a moment. But $150,000 is approximately $25.26 annually. For a non-homestead property, so you don't have a homestead exemption, value of $125,000 is $21.05. Okay, what is the value of a mill? So the assessed value, which is 40% of fair market price of all assets in the county, basically, is $4,550,636. That times your millage rate, proposed at 6.5, equals to $29.5 million. If you look back in 2008, everybody knows what's happened over the past 10 years. We've been on a downhill swing and then we came back up. This gives you a pretty good idea of how that happened and what the levy was. We're almost back to 2008 levels. I'm very close. This is a picture of what's happened. In 2011 through 2016, we had a couple of things going on. We had the budget, we went through budget reductions, quite a few budget reductions. We reduced some services. So that is how we funded, how we reduced back to from 2011 through 2016. Those values are coming back. The bottom line, those are the value of a mill, so that you can compare the value of a mill to the total levy. We have, as demand for services growth has been occurring, and we have the demands on departments, the demands citizens are requiring has increased. With that, as we provide those services, that cost goes back up. So we have, and we've talked a lot on level of service. So that's kind of where we are today, is to determine what level of service you want us to be at. Do we carry out a level of service that we had when we had reduced services, or do we improve those services or increase those services? And with that comes additional required funds. Surrounding millage rates. This was 2017 numbers. So, and it includes fire. So M&O is your maintenance and operations for all fire. So our highlighted in yellow is 6.5 plus 3.1 for fire. There are 9 counties that are surrounding us. Fayette is included on there. It's not surrounding us, but it's very somewhat similar to Paulding. They have a AAA rated credit rating. And so while we have gone through an improvement in credit ratings, that's what we need to strive to do. There are a lot of factors. It's not just financial, it's demographics that make up that rating. But I include them in that analysis a lot because we're similar. We have some similarities. These are digests. So I took the same counties that I did millage rates for. I compared digest. So I took all the residential out, and if you'll see, Paulding County is 79% residential. We're the highest in any of the 9 counties. And for commercial and industrial, we are 12%, which is the lowest of any of the counties. Given sometimes percentages can be skewed because if you have a smaller digest, it may make a difference in how that percentage calculates, but just interesting to see where our money comes from. So what does this increase mean to the homeowner? I did the same comparison as the school board had done for this purposes so that our numbers would somewhat match. So I took a value of 2017 value of $169,000, and that increased to 182, which is roughly the 7%, or about a 10% increase on average, and calculated that out so you could see what the M&O portion, the debt portion, the fire portion, and the school portion. The portion that this hearing is today is the $33.28, or $2.77 monthly. That's an estimated total of $156.41. So where do those tax dollars go? 62 cents on the dollar goes to the school. 21 cents on the dollar is what we're looking at today. 7 cents on the dollar is used to pay debt, and 10 cents on the dollar is used to fund the fire department, fire operations. So of that maintenance and operations, so of that 21%, how does that break down? Well, that 21% of your tax bill makes up 40% of our budget. So about 40% of our budget is funded with property tax dollars, and public safety is 35%, and public works. Public safety includes your sheriff, your jail, your coroner, your marshal. Public works includes mostly DOT, as well as fleet, stormwater, and recycling. Judicial obviously works. Any questions? And that concludes what I have, unless you have anything else.
Questions, comments? Good and clear presentation, Tabitha. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you.
At this time, I'll open it up to citizens wishing to speak on the millage rate. And if you would just come forward to the podium and sign in. Will everybody rush up at once? No one wishing to speak on the millage rate?
Don't close it. We're here. Right? That's right. We're here. Don't close it. If somebody's got something to say, this is what we're here for. So.
Would any of the commissioners like to say a few words about the millage rate?
Would you mind to go back up there and put back up on the screen? Is that okay? The comparison with the surrounding counties when it comes to us being 79% residential. There was a time where we were in the top 10 fastest growing counties in the nation for quite a few years. And so I'd just like to point out a couple things. It may not mean anything to anybody. But everybody knows we've got a lot of residential growth going on right now. So we've kind of been hammered a little bit about the commercial end of it. If the residential growth that we have coming on right now is really strong, which it is, and everybody knows that, the permit department knows that, then that's going to force the other number down on the commercial growth down because your residential is growing so fast. With that said, when you go into a recession, typically your residential will fall first and then your commercial falls behind it. When you come back out, your residential starts first, and your commercial will start after that. So that number of 12% very well could drop more over the next year, 18 months, just simply because residential's growing so fast. And it's going to be. We've got a lot of residential growth. So I just want to point that out. The screen before that, let's see, a couple screens before that, when we look at the 10-year. I just also like to point out on this to the residents. When you look at 2008 to 2018, a 10-year span there, and you look at the tax that was levied in 2008, and then you look at the tax for this year, I don't know that we're going to get above that. We may get above it a little bit because we've had some other stuff come in. Is that right? But we're just now getting back to the 2008 levels. And the reason that I bring that up is in 2008 we had about 100, and my numbers may not be correct, 100% correct. We had about 130,000 people in 2008. So here we sit today, we've got 165,000 people or so, and that number may not be perfect, but we got 35,000 more people. There was a time the school system was growing by a couple thousand kids a year, and then we went through the recession, we got down to 200 kids a year, 250 kids a year, and again, my numbers may not be perfect. And you look at the school digest, at what they've done, and people say, well, they had more kids come in, you need more money, you need more services. There's really no difference in what we've got here. And I just want the public to be aware of that we're bringing in money now that was what was being brought in 10 years ago. And we're trying to provide the same level of service. And there was quite a few years where we had to really cut to the bone. And you can do that so long. But then you get to a point where you've got to step it back up. You've got to put things in place that need to be put back in place, or you've got to buy some new equipment that you duct tape, super glued, and zip tied together. And that's where we're at now. So we can talk about this tax, 6.5, we can talk about rollback, but there's still a cost and a level of service. I have said for years, before we voted last year for the 6.5, that I truly believe there's a cost and a level of service that the citizens expect. And there's a cost of doing business. Now, I don't claim to have the answer that I know what that cost is. But if you look at the 10 years that's up there on the screen, and you look at the mill rate of 6.5, 6.65, 7.6, 7.6, 8.29, 8.22, 7.25, 6.528, and I'll just be real, I won't say anything about 2016. But there was a reason why that's 6.188. In 10 years, that was the lowest mill rate. Some of y'all can read between the lines and figure it out. And then for years, there was another commissioner up here, Mr. Tommy Graham, and I said, there's a cost of doing business, there's a cost of providing the services to the public. I think that cost is around 6.5. That's what I feel like that cost is. The public is telling us that they want that cost to be lower. And we work for the public. But I want you to know there is a cost of doing business, there is a cost of providing services. We are building a new jail back there that we're going to have to put the people in it to manage that jail next year. And anything that we were to trim back this year could be tougher for next year. I'm just being straightforward honest. It could be tougher for those that are sitting here next year. So I want to hear from the public what they want. And in my town halls, I had several people say, you know, we don't want our taxes to go up or whatever, but whatever the sheriff department needs, he needs. Well, it comes from us, it comes from your taxes. And so when you look at the school system, and I'm not saying anything negative about the school system, and then you talk about no matter what the sheriff needs, let him have it. It still leaves a cost of something. I mean, we still have the cost of taking care of our roads, our DOT department. We still have the cost of taking care of the citizens here in this building that come in. We still have the cost of parks and recs. We still have those costs out there, and those departments are really no different than the sheriff department or school system. We are dealing with 35,000 more people in this county today than what we were dealing with 10 years ago. And so I hope I'm making some sense when it comes to it. I think there's a cost of doing business and providing a level of service that we need to provide. I think there's a cost to do that. I think personally that cost is 6.5. Okay? And that when you do that, as values come back, the taxes are going to go up during that time. Folks called me 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago and I can't believe my value of my house. My value of my house. A lot of people hold a lot of stock in that piece of paper that comes in the mail. And I said, well, are you selling? They said, no. I said, enjoy the ride. Just enjoy the lower taxes right now because your values are down. So I'll stop talking. I just want you to realize the tax that we collected 10 years ago versus what we're doing today. Look at the mill rates that we have right there. And there is a cost of doing business to get the level of service where the citizens expect in one form or fashion. And some people don't expect a level of service until you pick up the phone and call. And then you expect that to be there. So, all right.
Thank you. We do have Mr. Chris Wheeler who is coming to the podium to speak. So Mr. Wheeler could sign in.
Yes, my name is Chris Wheeler, and Mr. Chairman, folks commissioners, I want to say I really appreciate what you had to say, Mr. Connell. You make a very good point that people ask for more services, some people ask for less services, and you've kind of made what I have to say fairly simple. I actually just saw an article this morning that was published that said, look, the rate of inflation is so high, salaries aren't keeping up. People don't have more money in their pockets. From 2008 to 2018, you say, yeah, we've increased the citizens of Paulding County by 35,000 people-ish. It's not working. Those 35,000 increased people, we're sitting here paying more out of our pocket. You would think that would come along and help with that. Like I said, I'll try to make this simple. I'm one of those people that kind of expects less government services. There's not a lot of increase coming along in the private sector for some of our salaries. We're making do. We're doing what we can. I feel like government in some ways may need to do the same. The other thing that I would like you guys to take a look at, there's several surrounding counties that have a higher homestead exemption than ours, several as high as $10,000. Increasing that would offset the millage rate increase for those of us that actually live here and spend our time in Paulding. There's a lot of rental properties in Paulding County that would not apply to. And I agree that would be a raise in the cost of doing business for rental property owners. That would likely get passed along to the renters because businesses frankly don't pay taxes. Consumers pay taxes. And I'd like you guys to consider that. The other thing, I just had a quick question, and then I'll be done. There was a line item at one point that was for increasing, for putting in another scale and paving at the recycling transfer facility. I had heard that was around $1.2 million. I mean, that's just an example of some of the areas where maybe we don't need that yet. That's a pretty stiff amount of money. It's a large amount of money. Maybe we do need it. I don't know. I was just going to ask if that was still in the budget as proposed. And if you guys need to get back to me, that's fine. I don't mind that. But frankly, for the rest of the citizens, I would encourage you just to come up. You don't need to be eloquent. Just come up, and if you would like less government services and more money in your pocket, state it. If you want more government services and to be able to pay for them through taxes, state it. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the 1.2 is in the 6.5 millage rate. I took the opportunity last night to visit our neighboring county, Cobb County, and go to their third public hearing, which is to be followed by a vote. I didn't stay for the vote. And I'll tell you why. They had their boardroom is a little bit wider than this and about 3 times as long. And there were over 300 people in there. Of course, they got a population of 750,000. And so they had over 50 people get up and speak. And one point of interest to me, I'm sure, this isn't the point of interest, but I'm sure Frank Baker spent a lot of time in that room when they had their meetings. But the point of interest was they're recommending, their board is recommending, and they voted on last night, and they voted in favor of it, a 1.7 millage rate increase. And y'all read it in the newspapers, so most of you are probably aware that for years their board rolled back and rolled back and rolled back so that taxes would not be increased. And they, that may be one set of board members, because the board members that I was looking at last night, most of them were new. So they inherited this rollback process over the years. So the one that's really responsible for it, the one of them was in the room, but most of them were in the room. And they dug a deeper and deeper hole, and then they started talking about, well, we're going to close our libraries and close our parks, some of them. Those luxury items, you might call them, where you don't have to have them. Another real interesting point was whether about 4 out of 5 of them spoke in favor of the 1.7 increase. But after they spoke, and most of them spoke a full 5 minutes, everyone in the audience clapped. It wasn't just the ones that were for the 1.7 or the ones that were against. I was sitting about 2/3 of the way back and could see everybody. Everyone clapped because they were clapping for these citizens participating in the budget process. I thought, well, that's cool. They, whether they were speaking against it or for it, I'm repeating myself, they were just happy that they could have a voice in their government. Does this mean you're going to speak?
I'd love to.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Joel Larkin, and I live in Post 2. I'm a Johnny-come-lately to DePaul County in the process of transferring from Cobb. And I've not studied the budget, so I don't have any general statements about it, but I do have an observation. And I just noticed this 2 days ago. The property at the corner next to Martin's, I saw a great big sign that said future home of Paulding Water and Sewer. And that struck me. I don't know the story behind that, but it seemed to me that that might have been an ill-advised opinion. And again, I don't have the background, but I saw 2 problems with that, and I'm sure it's got a big number in the budget somewhere. Number one, we're taking what, moving forward, is probably one of the best pieces of commercial property along there, and we're taking it off the tax rolls. I mean, that's probably a future Chick-fil-A or some very good tax-paying business, and I see the county taking it. It would seem to me that if the county needed to move water and sewer, and that's a second concern I have, that maybe they should have looked like Cobb County did over the years, where they looked for abandoned shopping centers kind of off the way in places where they could have a halo effect and be a positive force. And there's plenty of places in Dallas that, you know, abandoned buildings that probably aren't going to be good commercial buildings moving forward, that might have been worth considering. And I'm sure it's too late to rethink this corner, but moving forward, I think more thought might have been given to that. And maybe that was given to the county, I don't know. Second, I'm concerned about the decentralization. I think a move was made to centralize the county in this great big new building, and I'm not sure why we're reversing it. Right now, people can come to one place and do a lot of things, and now they've got to go to different places. So just make that point that maybe moving forward, you might want to consider what properties we're taking off the tax roll and what impact choosing other properties could have. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to answer just a couple of those. Just a couple, and some other folks may have a couple different opinions or different answers to that. We had a water department out on Bill Crew Parkway that we decided to change that over and bring the Georgia State Patrol in. And I think that was a good decision to do that because we were able to bring Georgia State Patrol inside our county, which helps us out and helps protect the citizens. Citizens helps the Sheriff's Department, and they're right here with us. The reason that we chose that location was because, one, the water department had actually outgrown their building there. So that's what we did. So we were the water department was never designed to be here inside this building to do what we're doing downstairs with the water department right now. When we moved from Bill Crew Parkway, we did that. And then we moved it here because we didn't have anywhere else to go, and that was the best decision we felt like at the time to get Georgia State Patrol in. And so we brought the water department here knowing that it would be for a short time, and then we would be moving back out to what we thought was going to be Macklin Road. And I may not be getting everything just picture perfect. However, we got out to Macklin Road, we've done a lot of work there. We realized that doing the building and keeping it right there with the other maintenance building was going to run us more money than what originally projected. So we were looking around at different sites. That building actually was on the market for a long time. A lot of different people could have purchased that building, and I agree there's a lot of truth to what was just said, Joel, what you just said as far as taking it off the tax digest. But it's a great central location for the water department. One of the #1 complaints we have is we don't have a drive-through. I know some of y'all that do everything online have a hard time saying, well, why do you need a drive-through for water bills? But the fact of the matter is, high demand for a drive-through for water bills. That bank piece of property had that, and we looked at that. We looked at the cost savings it was going to be. And again, disclaimer, my numbers may not be perfect. Taxes being paid on that building, just like old shopping centers somewhere that may be defunct, somebody's still paying taxes on it. Taxes being paid on that building, I don't know, roughly $20,000 a year. Figured that our difference in our savings that we're going to make was going to take 50 years to recoup the difference that it was going to make, and we made that decision. Not everybody agrees with that on the board, but the board decided to do that and move forward. So that's really the story, Joel, about, hey, we moved from Bill Crew Parkway to get the Georgia State Patrol here, which I think was a great decision. And we are here temporary inside this building with the water department, and the plan was to be moving out and find another location. Our #1 plan didn't work out that way, so here we are. But I'll stop. I think I covered it pretty decent for you.
I think you covered all the major points.
Okay.
See another citizen walking forward. Thank you, Ms. Powell, for being here.
I have to appreciate what Chris Wheeler did say. I think a lot of citizens feel that way. When I was creating budgets with the school district, when we went through this terrible crisis, the one thing that we kept telling our departments was to absolutely put down your needs and not your wants. And I think a lot of times when we're making budgets as departments, we start putting in things that we think would help the departments, and I don't disagree with that. However, when you are trying to maintain and do the best you can for the citizens with their money, I think it's a good idea to sometimes go back and line by line say, okay, is this really a need or is this just a want? And that's just a suggestion that I have. I've already seen a couple on this that I think, you know, do we really need a drone or could we do without a drone? And I think those are the types of things that we need to really look at to support the citizens and their concerns about our taxes going up, and maybe we can equalize everything so that you can get what you really need for the county, but yet the citizens can be happy too.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
It's been a long time since I've been up here. I just want to point out one thing for the citizens. Chris, I appreciate you coming. Anybody that has questions about the budget should try to come to Tabitha's workshop that she does once a year, where she comes and she fills this room up with tables and laptops and all the department heads. And you can ask all the questions you want to of any department head, and they can explain everything about their budget items, what they want in their budget. She sets up a table specifically for citizens. This year, I was the only citizen that came to that workshop. So they do give you opportunities to ask those questions and to justify what it is that they're asking for. So next year, hopefully they'll get it advertised in time and you guys can come to that and interact with some of the department heads and some of the people in the county so they can explain what it is they need the things for. That's all.
Thank you.
No one else? Thank you very much, citizens who spoke and others that came to listen and to challenge their own thinking about this very difficult. And I say to constituents weekly, there's nothing more important than this group of 5 people facing you today does than the budget. We've got so many challenges there. In some ways, I think it's not so much a millage rate problem as it is the 12% number that we saw. And so we all know in this room that we need economic development and business growth to balance the tax base. So it's a balanced tax base problem more than just the millage rate problem. Any other comments? At this time,
I'd like to say one more thing. Thank you. Thank you. Again, I like the process to be out here for y'all to participate in. That's what it's about. I spoke about that about a week ago. And to hear from you guys. And I also said where I stood on it a week ago. I just want you to realize that if we do anything less than the 6.5, it's kind of like what we had to deal with in 2016. And so I say that because I want to be clear, since we record everything. I didn't like the position that we were put in 2016. 6.188. And then here we are now, last year, dealing with what we were dealing with. And again, I think there's a cost. Somewhere there's a level of service. And I feel like, and I could be way wrong, I think that level of service is 6.5. But I also said where I stood. And if this board decides to roll back, then I'm kind of doing the same thing that happened in 2016. And that's tough for me to do because I care about the county, I care about the citizens, I care about the employees, And I care about the next people that will be sitting in these seats in January, because you have to deal with it every year, the budget. And it takes all of us working together, and I don't need to leave office and put them in a spot that's not the best spot they could be in, because I've seen that happen before. And that's not Todd County, so, thank you.
If we wait long enough, we'll have everybody come up to speak. So glad that Commissioner Pownell extended his comments so that Ms. Rollins could come to speak.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I don't think it's so much the millage rate that we have concerns about. I believe it's assessments and how drastically they have jumped. Grant you, we are starting to see things turning around, but I don't believe that the assessments on our home values are correct. I believe they've been way over exaggerated, and I think we need to take a long, hard look at those and put them at where it should be, not what is anticipated, because I believe the assessments have come in at an anticipated rate as opposed to an actual rate. If we try to go and sell our home for the so-called assessed value that we got, there's no way in heck, excuse me, that that's going to happen. And I think if we take a step back and reassess that, then I believe the citizens won't have a problem with the 6.5 millage rate if we put the assessments of our homes at the correct rate. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Stokes is in the room. Would it be okay to ask him to come and explain that process of the assessment, and as well as the independence between that board and this board?
Certainly. James is always ready.
I think this may address some of your concerns, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. This is always a very spirited time of the year. We have finished our assessment notice period this year, which allowed the taxpayer 45 days to appeal any value that we've assigned to a property. The Board of Assessors does not determine the market value. The market is what determines the value. The Board of Assessors simply reflect what's going on in that market. Well, under state law guidelines, that we must be at fair market value. If we're less than 10% of what properties are selling for, of properties that have actually sold within the previous 12 months of January 1, then the county can face penalties. And when the county faces penalties, it's not the county, it's not you gentlemen, it's all these property owners. If we cannot maintain values of where they need to be, the county will face those penalties, the property owners. This year, we sent out about 65,000 notices. Out of those 65,000 notices, we only had 1,553 bids. That's right at 2%. Out of those 65,000 notices, we had about 317, I believe, homesteaded properties, people who actually live and reside in the county. We have about 800 to 900 of that 1,500 properties that were appealed were filed by bulk property owners. And what I mean by that is that's companies that represent multiple taxpayers of these large hedge fund groups that have gone in and bought up a lot of properties during the recession. We have bulks of 300-400 appeals. So we have to address all of those things. Each and every year, we're audited by the Department of Audits. All of those audits are on our website. Every 3 years, we're audited by the Department of Revenue. They come in and turn over every sheet of paper, go through all of our training records, go through every one of our minutes, look at all of our sales. So this is not only do we have to justify our value, improve our value to each and every citizen within Paulding County, we have Big Brother being the Department of Audits and the Department of Revenue also giving that outside look into our office. And I'm glad to say that since I've been associated with the Assessor's Office in 22 years, we have never failed that responsibility. And so I hope that the questions with taxpayers that they have by all means, stop by our office anytime. During the 45-day appeal period, we met with over 1,600 property owners, addressing their questions, showing them the data that we use to arrive at the value of their property. All of the sales going back to 2014 are on our website. So, and then just recently, the Board of Commissioners authorized us to open the assessor's website open to the public. Unlimited amount of information that you can have, looking up sales, looking up everybody that's in your neighborhood, seeing what the values are, seeing what trends are. And it's and if you have questions about that, by all means, we want anybody and everybody that has a question about their property to have it addressed and at least us explain it. We may not come to an agreement, but at least we had the opportunity to sit down and show these people what we are looking at, because these are not hypothetical numbers we're grabbing out of the air.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good explanation. You see no other citizens moving toward the lectern. I'll call it the conclusion of our regular business for the public hearing. And we will just roll right in to the work session. So I will now
Okay. Rebecca needs to get the agendas out. Also, Dave, the marshal had brought up the sign-in sheet, and our ordinance allows sign up 10 minutes before the meeting starts. So if we could get, I know a lot of people have come in the room since we started the hearing. If anybody has desire to sign up to speak on agenda items for the work session, we need to make sure they have an opportunity to do so.
It's right, it's up here.
Chief Bass,
Chief Bass.
it's right here.
So citizens that do wish to speak during the work session, just go back to the back table there and put your name on it. And get here. Okay, we will adjourn for 10 minutes and then come back and begin our regular work session. At this time, I will call the Paulding County Board of Commissioners July 26th work session to order. And we're very privileged today to have Pastor Kevin Beeman from Christian Alliance of Pastors, and also the Senior Pastor of Word of Faith Community Church, bring us our invitation and our township flag. Please stand if you're able.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Let us pray. Father God, we come before you with bowed heads for our reverence for you, Father God. We thank you for all you do in our lives, Lord God. Please look down on this county, Lord God. Help the decision makers to make the right decisions, Lord God. They have our future in mind, Lord God. You said there's a multitude of counselors that can provide the best advice. So we provide them. We thank you, Lord, for your governance. We thank you for your grace, mercy, and love. And we thank you for all things, including our health here today, the fact that we are actually here today. In Jesus' name we thank you and pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks so much, Pastor Beeman. Appreciate it so much. I'd like to recognize Sheriff Gary Gullich, who's joined us today. We'll see Mayor, school board, and other elected officials. We have minutes, the July 10th, 2018 work session minutes and the July 10th, 2018 board meeting minutes are available for your review. Under our Positively Paulding segment today, we had exciting things going on last week, so enjoy the video.
I'm very pleased with the way the county
service were amazing. They worked with us, answered a zillion questions very politely.
And Jack Camp has been a dream to work,
He has!
to work with.
Look how about our resident rocket manager.
And he's just been available, he's been up and down our road practically every week since the project started in November. And
Fielding emails and phone calls.
I don't know how to do this whole thing.
We have water on Overlook Trail. That's something our board of commissioners has been looking forward to for several months. You know, what's more important than water to your home? You can look for gold, you can look for silver, but we can't do without water. And these people out here have been very patient in waiting for good, dependable water service, and we're glad that they have it today. So I'll just say hallelujah.
Lloyd has been very instrumental in appropriating the money, getting the money here. I don't know how she guided, but thank you, Lloyd, for that. This wages is one that initially got me started looking at water, and then I got a notification out here that folks needed water. But I wanted to come out of it. When she found out that other people needed to worship her, she was gracious enough to say, go ahead. So a special thank you to her. Lloyd, thank you more than you know, and I know that people out here overlooked.
We've got places all over the county that need this, and hopefully we've got more of these ribbon cuttings and these kind of days that are going to be coming soon.
Great.
Folks that need water. Thank you, Lori. Thank you so much. Thank the board of commissioners and the citizens. 3, 2, 1.
No water,
That's fun. The Board of Commissioners would like to present the Public Safety Appreciation Award to Lisa Paris from Paulding County E911 Center. And Mr. David Mumford is going to help us with the presentation.
Keep standing in the back and getting no water. Apparently, we forgot to tell Lisa about this until this morning at 9 o'clock. Very excited to be here this morning to present this award to one of our outstanding employees at the 911 Center, Lisa Paris. So Lisa comes from a very long line of public safety. Her parents are in the back. Her dad worked for the Sheriff's Department. Her mom worked for the county. Her husband worked for Dallas PD, right? Yeah. So it's in her blood. And so she came to work for us in April of 2013 and was promoted to the rank of Lead Communications Officer in 2016. And she demonstrates a strong knowledge of policy and procedure, as well as she has a skill to teach this new employee, and that's part of her job as a lead, as a trainer and an assistant supervisor. She's been instrumental in developing trainees into fully trained and skilled communications officers. In addition to training new employees, she provides continued training for employees that are existing employees on our policies and procedures, which are ever changing as we try to meet standards. Lisa helps train and keep our folks up to date on this stuff. She's distinguished herself through her willingness to take on additional assignments. She's worked for our tactical dispatch team, and she assists with classroom training during her normally scheduled off days. She'll come in and help with that. She's got a vested interest in improving the morale at the 911 Center and helping create the most positive work environment in a very stressful situation, very stressful work environment that we have. She's really good at keeping her shift upbeat. She works to create new ways to recognize her coworkers for their accomplishments by showcasing their positive performance. And this recognition and encouragement has improved the employee engagement and morale on her shift, which has resulted in even higher standards of performance. On a personal note, you know you're getting old, or at least aging, you're not old yet, when you hire someone and bring them in that played middle school soccer with your daughter. and years later, they actually come to work for you. So, she's proven herself to be a dedicated employee and a leader in public safety, and this is an honor to present her with this award. So if you will join me in recognizing her.
While we're setting up for the picture, I'd like to read the Public Safety Appreciation Award words here. This presented to Miss Lisa Paris in recognition of outstanding service. In recognition of outstanding service to her community, presented by the Palmer County Board of Commissioners this 26th day of July 2018. Lisa, thanks so much.
Can the family come up to the front?
Husband too?
Christina, we have some 911 There you go. They're all around.
We have no invited guests this morning. Under bid awards, discuss action to award the Greenfield Road Utility relocation to the lowest responsible bidder, Wade Coots Company Incorporated, in the amount of $296,335. Ms. Polly.
Good morning. On July 20th, we received bids to relocate 360 linear feet of gravity sewer line and 150 linear feet of force main pipelines. This is in advance of hauling DOT's Greenfield Road widening. And this is the second time we bid this project. We bid the first time and did not receive a bid from a qualified vendor contractor. So we put it out again, and this time Wade Coots participated, and they were the low bidder at $296,335. If you have any questions, and Lauren may have more specifics on the project.
Any questions? Thank you. Reports from committees and departments. Our first report is from our county administrator, Mr. Frank Baker, who has a special guest with us here, a special announcement.
Well, good morning. Thank you for letting me take a few minutes of y'all's time today. We've got a busy schedule all day long, so I'm only going to take a few minutes. Up on the screen is an event that we want to unveil today. We've been working on it. We've got a leadership team that's been put together since really the first of the year. And the event is going to be a partnership with Make-A-Wish of Georgia. And I've got some folks here I'm going to introduce in just a second. They're going to come up and talk. I think one of them's going to talk. And we appreciate that. I have a long history of working with Make-A-Wish when I was in Cobb. And I thought, wow, I'd love to be able to bring that out here. And also to incorporate what is one of our greatest things, and that's the Silver Common Trail. So on September 15th, we're going to have a hauling ride for wishes, and all the net proceeds are going to benefit Make-A-Wish in Georgia. And we're going to have a couple of rides within the ride. One is going to be a family ride of up to 2 miles that will go up to from here to the chamber and back. And then we'll have up to 22-mile ride from this location up to the county line on the Silver Common. And so a family can come in and they can ride as much as they want, but it's a ride, not a race, and so it's not timed. But we're real excited about the event that's coming up in September, and I got a whole bunch of folks that have on the committee. I just want to mention their names. We've got our IT director, Will Lyons, finance director, Tabitha. She's the most popular person today in the building. Rebecca Meredith, our county clerk. Lisa K. Helton, who is the administrative assistant for our new juvenile court judge. Sergeant Ashley Vinson, who's in the back, and I feel really bad. Ashley helps us so much. I always go to the well with him, that he's always stepping up for us, and he's helping out with this also. Our Parks Director, Michael Justice, our TV23 Director, Jeff Harkins, and then Felicia Womack, who is now working with me out of my office. We also have a collaboration with Dallas, our new police chief in Dallas, Joe Duvall. Chief Duvall is going to be working with us, and they're going to provide us with some support that day. And Stacy Hamby from the chamber. is also on our committee. And finally, the owners, the co-owners, Ira and Mike at Psychology Bike Shop in Hiram have joined us to help us. They have a lot of experience with rides on the Silver Comet and working in that industry, and they've been real helpful in helping us put this thing together. So at this point, I'd like to introduce a couple people from Make-A-Wish, Georgia. We've got Tim Early, the CEO for Make-A-Wish, Georgia, and Jaylee Welsh, the Community Events Manager. And so I think Tim's going to come up and speak just a minute.
Thank you, Frank. Good morning. I wanted to be here this morning, first and foremost, just to say thank you to Paulding County for agreeing and deciding to put on the Rides for Wishes to benefit Make-A-Wish, Georgia. Probably everyone in this room has heard of Make-A-Wish. You may know a little bit about what it is that we do. What I suspect many of you do not know is that while we're part of a wonderful national organization, Make-A-Wish Georgia is in fact its own 501c3. We are a local nonprofit. All of the money that's raised in Georgia stays in Georgia. It goes for granting wishes just for kids in Georgia. Throughout this state, we have quite a backlog of wishes. We have more than 800 kids that are waiting for their wishes to be granted. We have 14 in Paulding County. And when you have a chance to meet any of our wish families, see some of our stories, experience a little bit of that magic, you start to realize just how important and how powerful that is. In fact, there's medical research that's being conducted today that starts to look at the impact that a wish experience has on not just feelings, but on actual medical outcomes. So we're excited for that research to be released hopefully very soon. But in my couple of years with the chapter and in granting wishes, I can tell you that there is one key ingredient in this special magic that we do, and that's community. If you look across every single wish that we've granted, at some point, in some way, it has been a community that comes together and makes it happen for their children and for their families. And that's exactly what this ride will do. And so I thank you guys for thinking of us, for Frank's enthusiasm around this. We had a great meeting this morning. We're very excited about it, and we're excited to be granting wishes for some of the kids right here in Paulding County. Thank you guys very much.
Just a final word. Felicia has put some registration forms at the back counter. If anybody's interested, also the information about how to access the website and register online. So we're asking folks to come out and ride with us, and we're also asking folks to sponsor. And so we have 4 sponsorship levels, and that information is also online and in the back. So I'll entertain any questions if the board has any.
Hey Frank, thanks for being positive and upbeat, bringing that to us. It's good. It's good to do other things that work other than just work that can build excitement that helps us out with work. So I appreciate it, and your class act.
Thank you.
Are you going to lead the bike ride?
He's got his running shoes on. We're not riding bikes. You're running.
As y'all know, I ride all the time. I would love to ride, but I think I'm going to be helping Sergeant Henson a lot that morning. He's agreed to be our MC that morning for a ceremony that we're going to do, so I'll probably be helping him. But so if anybody wants to ride my bike, it's available. I'll be happy to ride. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, next on the agenda is an update on the Atlanta Transit Link. And I was able to go to a 2-hour meeting yesterday morning where there were 150 people in the Deloitte building downtown Atlanta. Always love going down there. But I don't have these for everybody yet, but I'll have them next meeting. This was really the first inaugural get-together by a staff member with the Atlanta Region Transit Link. Mr. Chris Tomlinson, an attorney. We'll hold that against him, Joel. And he's on the staff, and he gave us a brief that's going to get the ball rolling for this effort around the regional area. And that was the key thing that was pointed out. This is going to be regional, and I'm just glad that we're able to be a part of it. Regional governance, regional transit planning, regional transit funds, and regional unified boarding. So the first thing that's going to happen, there's over 100 cities in this region it's designated as 13 counties that were meshed together, merged together, and then they found 10 different districts that it's going to be broken down into. We're District 4, and all the mayors will begin next month and having their caucuses, and it's the first step toward putting together a 15-member board that will be led by the governor so that everything can be done in a regional planning method. Right now we've got like 10 operating transits around the Atlanta area. So you can see that the great need of collaboration and consolidation into one working transit effort. So that's all I've got. I'll try to keep you. I know a lot of the board members have asked me about it before, and you in the audience have read about it. That's House Bill 930 that was sponsored by Representative Tanner and Senator Gooch. I'm sorry, Senator Beach. All right, next on the agenda is Mr. Tommy, I'm sorry, we got Deidre first. Ms. Deidre Holden, election supervisor, just to give us an update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to let you know that I find it, it's just amazing how things work out, but we're here having budget hearings, and that's one thing that I want to speak about is the changes that's going to be made in the election office and voter registration. On July the 11th, the Board of Elections met, and we have been talking about this for some time, basically since the May primary took place. We feel that at this time, we will no longer be using satellite voting locations. Satellite voting locations is a huge expense to this county. And by closing the 3 satellite voting locations we have at this time will be a substantial savings to Paulding County. It may be an inconvenience, but with the lack of voter participation, we can't justify keeping those locations open and paying the staff plus the additional materials it takes to run satellite voting locations. So what we've decided to do is have all of the early voting here at this location. We will not take something away without adding back to it. So in November, when we start voting, we will extend our hours here. They'll be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And when there's a federal candidate on the ballot, we have to have Saturday voting. We have one day for Saturday voting. We will add an additional Saturday for that. We just can accommodate the voters better here because we are the ones who do this every day. When we open satellite locations, we depend on poll workers. Poll workers don't do what we do every day. If there's an issue, we can handle it here. I know people are not going to be happy with this decision, but this is the courthouse. This is where all the magic happens. So basically, people come here every day. I see them. They purchase their car tags. They pay their property tax. They, go to court. So we just felt like that this would be in the best interest of the taxpayer because we want to be very frugal with our money. We want to be able to, by giving back, we can add to our services. I know that Sheriff Village needs more deputies. I know that Joey needs more firefighters. So if we can help in that in any way, that's what we're always going to try to do. So I wanted to just let you know that our board unanimously voted to close these locations and that we will move forward. It will be handled with integrity. It will be handled in the way we always have handled it with the voters' interest in mind. And we will have a lot of people here come November, but we are prepared for that. And just looking forward to see, what happens with this. So I just would ask for your support and that you would just encourage people, of course, always to get out and vote and just be there for us and help us. I can't say, we could not have gotten through this election Tuesday without the departments in this county, without the people that reaches out to help us. My staff can't do it. all by ourselves. It takes a group effort. I love to hear Frank say we are team hauling, because that's what we are, and that's what we will continue to be. So just wanted to brief you on that, and if you have any questions, please ask me. Just, wanted to just let you know what was going on and keep you in the loop with how things are working.
Peter, I don't have any questions, but I want you to know that I'm in full agreement with what you're doing. You are looking out for the county, and to bring all the early voting here, I think is the right decision, and I appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you.
Did a marvelous job.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Very good.
Chime in, the voting, you guys haven't voted here during the early voting. It's streamlined more than I could have ever imagined. It's a very easy process, even when there's people in front of you. And there's, are you still going to keep that photo booth, the little photo booth?
Absolutely,
So
yes.
you can post a picture and tell your friends that you online that you voted, and they can know where to do it. And there's also, she's got a little table set up there to occupy children, and I assume it's for children.
It is.
I guess adults.
Even though we saw you there, isn't it?
Well, the coloring pages were just calling to me. But there's if you have to bring a kid with you to the to stand on, the kid's not going to be standing there bored, standing in line or something to occupy the kids. So you don't have squirmy and complaining children, and or maybe some squirmy and complaining adults. But it is streamlined. It does very well. And I was thinking about this the other day, Deidre. I think I've known you better part of a decade, and the entire time that I've known you. You and your board have always been looking for ways that you can spend county money, citizens' money, wisely, and creative ways to be more responsible with that money. And sometimes it might not be a popular thing to do, but I can tell you I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Is that all? May I please be excused? I do have an election to certify. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Unless any of the board members have a problem with masks, and Mr. Johnson, who I know he's got a lot to do also with comprehensive program services, I would ask him to come up before our other reports. Okay, everybody done with that? Okay. Eric, thank you. Brian, would you bring that list forward while he's coming up? Yeah.
Good morning, Chairman, fellow commissioners.
Good morning.
Here to give the monthly update to the jail project. There's some slides in the back, but we're probably not going to be providing any more pictures other than elevations, because you just look out the second floor back there and get a bird's eye view. We also have a camera that's out there that's on the jail website too, which we'll cover in the presentation as well. So let's get started. Budget, always the first thing we talk about. Nothing significant has changed with the budget since the GMP, other than the negotiations for sewer service with the city of Dallas. As you can see, we were carrying a number of $300,000 initially, which we felt was more than adequate based on our experience with adjacent counties, Cobb in particular, and Douglas. But this came in about $550,000 more than we had budgeted. Those funds came from the owner's contingency, which you will see there, which has dropped the owner's contingency to $950,000. We had a discussion today at the jail with the chief. What we did in the relative to is the owner contingency enough for the rest of the project? I want to address that real quick. As you see out there, we got a lot of site work going on. Currently, we have not hit any rock, knock on wood, and the biggest risk to this project, as I've always stated, was getting out of the ground. Within the next 2 to 3 months, we should have the foundations in and be in pretty good shape relative to the unforeseen risks that we've always talked about. provided we get through that, I think we should be, the 950 should be more than adequate. And we don't foresee any rock. We did a lot of investigative stuff, some ground penetrating radar, which isn't perfect, but it's fairly significant. And we did that, as you remember, to try to establish the right grade, finished floor elevation for that courthouse. We worked with Scott and Bruce Coyle on the dirt issue, on trees, City of Dallas on the architectural review. So all of that is being contemplated correctly, or currently. Having said that, we also, as you can see at the bottom, inside the GMP of $60,100,000, we had what was labeled as construction contingency. What that is that's a line item within Turner Construction's guaranteed maximum price for not so much unforeseen conditions inside their GMP, but things that just weren't totally clear on the drawings that we have set aside inside theirs, that we manage on a daily basis with them. If there's something that hits that construction contingency, we talk about it and we deal with it. But as you can see, in the GMP, we have $1 million. In the GMP, the budget was $1,362,212. And as you can see, the construction contingency has actually increased. And that is your money inside their guaranteed maximum price. Contract provides that they can allocate that as they feel necessary, but we've worked with Turner for a very long time, and we sit down and talk about anything that hits this job as it relates to any sort of change. So that's very positive. So between the two, we're at almost $2.5 million worth of contingency on the project. So again, let us get out of the site work, get the foundations in by the end of October. At that time, probably the meeting in October, I'll be able to update you on the risks still to the county as it relates to that owner's contingency. So.
Questions, concerns?
On the budget, I know I kind of went through that pretty quickly and I got in the weeds a little bit, but I thought it was important that you guys kind of understood. If I was sitting up there, that number has come down significantly. We watch that number and we manage your risk based on all of our experiences. So I wanted to express that to you all. And we talk about that with the Sheriff's Office as well. One other thing, if you remember in the GMP we had, initially we were talking about keeping the GMP lower and having alternates to put back in the job at certain times in the construction this funding would be coming out of the owner contingency. We put all those 4 alternates, which are very, very crucial for the operations of the Sheriff's Office, in that guaranteed maximum price. So we're reviewing to make sure that those alternates that were put in clearly do meet the needs of the Sheriff's Office long term. So we talked about that this morning as well. So we'll be covering that as well. So. Okay. Steps completed. We're on board. Wakefield Beasley, we have Karen Sickner and Steve Philippi who are here. Represent Wakefield Beasley. We're in a meeting this morning. Construction Manager at Risk on board, Tim Collins and Lance Painter. And the nice thing is all of these folks on this team, but all the folks on this team that are working out there have been on this job from a very high level since day one. And they're still all involved with this project. So all the decisions that were made from a year ago, the same people who made it for their firms are actually still working on this job, and they're sitting in the audience today. So, award approval letters. We have awarded, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we have awarded roughly, for approval letters, what happens is, so Turner Construction, they put this stuff out to bid, and we all go through the scopes and the budgets, and Turner provides an approval letter to Comprehensive Program Services. Actually comes across my desk. We look through it, make sure we understand it, what the holds are, go through the whole thing, and we move forward, allow them to execute a contract. It's a formality, it's not a legal thing, but it's just how this team works together. And with that, they've awarded, I think, $44 million worth of the $50 million worth of contracts out there as of today. And these are just a couple of them that we've awarded. That's kind of where we are from a contractor award perspective. We'll talk about the subcontractor level of awards here shortly. As you can see, the construction progress, local participation, I don't know, I guess my slides are different in here, but, which is actually nicer. So local participation, right now currently is at 20.26%, and that is of the 44 million that has been awarded. Inside that 44 million, Turner is still working inside with those contractors and how they're subcontracting some of that work below that. So we are anticipating that 20.26% number to go up. We're still trying to get to that 25% number. So as it stands right now, it's 20.26 like we've said before, but we're working every day. You know, it's suppliers, it's a lot of other things that we're trying to get, and I mean, we're beating the bushes every single day. If there's anybody who still wants to get involved from a local participation standpoint, they can call me, as always, on anybody on the whole team to try to get them involved. Okay? The sheriff brought one up to me the other day. We got with them, and how it works out, we'll let you know, but we take any calls. So. As you can see, the project progress out there, all the trees are complete, grinding of trees are underway, installation, all erosion controls up. We've been coordinating with DES. Apparently they are having some drive testing going on, and it was kind of conflicting with some of the drivers who were doing their tests, so we came back early one morning at 5 a.m. to install all the erosion control fences, which is actually right up on their curb line. So we're working with DDS, Georgia Power, everybody involved who's impacting the site. Local participation. Schedule. So GMP was May 24th, land disturbance 7/10, construction was started a month later than we had stated from the very beginning. We worked through a lot of meetings. We were able to get the permit with the city of Dallas. You'll see a date up there of January 9th, 2020 for substantial completion. The original date we were looking for was October 24th, 2019. These dates have just kind of come up. I don't want you to see them because if anything is printed out there, that's the date that's up. We're working with Turner and Wakefield Beasley, and we're trying to better those dates. There's some supplier issues, but we're on it, and we'll have a better idea. These are just some of the figures that came back from the contractors from their latest approval letters. But I wanted to give you the latest and greatest, but we think we can achieve an earlier substantial completion date of January 9th of 2020. And final completion is just when the punch list stuff's done, everything else, but the sheriff's office would be able to take occupancy around that substantial completion date if they would. But prior to that, they do a lot of training and everything else inside the facility. So. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. So I'll be glad to answer any questions or concerns.
We are using Metromont out of Hiram for a lot of it too, correct?
We are. And that's an issue we've been dealing with. Scott and Bruce have been on the forefront of that over at their, that's been a very, very, very detailed process in working with the city of Dallas, how it's going to look. Precast, the more you pretty it up, I mean, it costs just is exponentially more. Can have an impact on the footings. So the city of Dallas, I mean, it could have been a significant issue, but we don't think it's going to be, and it has not been approved by the city of Dallas yet. But we have, we feel good that it will be. So, but yes, Metromont is the precast contractor on this project. And as you see, that's the jail website. And that's a picture from the top of the floorhouse.
So you feel okay with the 950,000?
$1.5 million is a lot better. I guess what I would yes, in that we haven't hit here. The only thing is there is potential for rock. Okay, and as you know, I stood up here and talked to you about the rock over in at the training center. But fortunately, we have it's a cut site now, and that big hole that I had to dig back there, to fill up the firing range because there was rock down there. A lot of this dirt is going over there, which is right down the road. We're going to fill that. We're working with Bruce and Scott with DOT to be able to have another area for the sheriff's office to work back there too. But to answer your question, I'll feel a lot better at the end of October. I worry about whether I'm worried about the right stuff. So I'm probably not the right guy to ask, but I think so. I do. I don't think if we hit any rock, it'll be on that one knoll that you see on the left side of the site. If you're looking out the back window, there's a lot of fill, a lot of topsoil. There's 2 to 3 foot of topsoil back there. It's unbelievable. But I think we've worked with the county on the trees. We've done a lot of civil coordination work with the county and with the city. But barring any real rock, I know we have some deep utilities. Commissioner, I know this is getting in the weeds a little bit, but it's a lot easier to deal with stabilizing underground utilities than it is moving rock. So that's the only real risk I see, and it always is until you get footings in. So.
Yeah, you answered my question in the first sentence, so I completely understand. I would like to thank Scott Green and Bruce Cole, but they've done a lot of work working with you guys, Frank and the city of Dallas. But we've done, Scott, thank you for the efforts that you've made, and we've tried to really preserve those trees on the backside there in order to make sure things look good from the backside of the jail and from the other side there of Dallas. And I think us working with that and being careful with the dirt, I think we'll have a good looking project at the end that the citizens of the county and the citizens of Dallas and driving all around that facility should really look good. And watch those trees.
Yes, sir.
Watch those trees.
They're marked.
I know they are.
By the way, just because they're marked does not mean that they're coming down. I get that question a lot.
So yes, I appreciate it. Scott, thank you so much. I know that's been a job, and anyway, move forward.
Yes, we concur. Thank you, Scott and Bruce. Have been great to work with through this whole thing, particularly with the city of Dallas and Metro. So.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, the only remaining thing on reports from committees and departments is Mr. Tommy Leonard to talk about solid waste recycling management.
Tell you what, after working outside every day, you can hang feet in this place. It's cold. But good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, Mr. Skipper, and our citizens, and I thank you all for being here today. As most of you are fully aware, we are currently operating our solid waste transfer station on a 1993 design, and that was designed to provide service for about 60,000 citizens. And the last numbers that I've been able to obtain from voter registration from dealers, we have about 160 in our county right now, and we're continuing to experience growth in our area. And as most of you are aware that Seven Hills and Nature Walk communities have encircled our area of operation, building not far from our property lines, literally surrounding our area of operation. The Paulding County Transfer Station is in need of some major repairs and improvements in order for us to continue the service that we provide to our citizens, as well as meeting federal, state, and local requirements. And I'm requesting that each of my commissioners, when you are free and you have the time, to please come out to our facility and take a tour and see how my staff operate under extreme conditions not ordinarily found in other departments. Commissioner Crowe, you have visited us several times and even worked some hours with us on a Saturday, and I thank you for that. I really do. It means a lot. Now, many Saturdays we have citizens and non-citizens lined up on both sides of Seven Hills Boulevard to use our facility. And at some points, it takes an average of 30 minutes once you're in that line to get up on the scale. Just to get on the scale, then you get in line waiting to get in the building, and it takes you another 30 to repeat that process to come out. we've actually seen people drive over the medians to go around the traffic. And I'm sure that this could possibly cause an issue for our first responders if they need to navigate through that area as well. I spend many of my Saturdays directing traffic to help with this issue. Our citizens do need to remember, however, that we were there in the 1980s, a long time before these neighborhoods were established, but we still have the responsibility to be good neighbors and keep the peace. We're currently in the process of an inert grinding project that's going to extend the life of our inert, and that's where we put all of our trees and shrubs and brush. That's going to help ensure that we can extend that life cycle. And I want to thank Tabitha Pollard for helping me on this project. I have always been able to walk into the finance department, and if I'm lucky, I can catch Tabitha not busy on the phone or already talking to someone in her office. And she always takes time to help me. She'll tell you one of two things, yes or no. That's it. Tabitha, you and your staff have always been super good to me, and I really appreciate what you do to ensure the fiscal integrity of our county. I walk in many mornings to conduct our daily business that we have to do there, and our staff is always professional and helpful, and that's a great way to start the day. Now, having said that, here we go. Additional upcoming expenses are rebuilding and replacing the existing transfer building and scale house, which are almost inoperable. We have no hot water to wash our hands at the scale house, and the toilet is ready to crash through the floor. The transfer building is in terrible condition, and I guarantee you that none of you would come and sit down and eat in our break room / office. And our pole barn is simply falling apart. By the way, 1990 called me the other day and said they wanted their Okie Dot matrix printer back. Yes, that's what we actually use, folks. We're still using that. But in May of 2017, we increased our tipping fee that the commissioners approved from $40 a ton to $45 a ton, a very slight increase for our county citizens. And our commercial rate went to $60 a ton. Now, all non-residents pay a minimum of $20 for the first 300 pounds, and then each additional 300 pounds is another $20. But prior to this increase, many other counties deferred their commercial loads and most of their municipal solid waste to us due to the low prices, our low tipping fees, and 2 of them closed at noon on Saturday, and guess where they come? They come to us. It causes a major flood on our operation. But we need to keep in mind that this landfill was designed to serve the citizens of Paulding County, not all of Metro Atlanta. And it's vital that we maintain control of our transfer station. For example, we accepted 550 loads of dirt from the Macklin Road Water Department project. If the Paulding Board of Commissioners would have had to pay for that, it would have come to a price tag of nearly $360,000. Dirt's expensive to move. Now this week, it's been kind of a difficult week for me. I've received a lot of comments and visits from several of our citizens that are against what we have requested in the fiscal year 2019 budget to correct these issues. I think many of our citizens are misinformed as the urgent need for these renovations. We have not made any improvements to the transfer station since 1993. 25 years. We're a 6-day-a-week operation, and it takes a toll on our personnel, our equipment, and our facility. We were blessed to be able to replace, long overdue, with a front-end loader and a bulldozer. And I promise you, to the citizens of this county, I will make my staff available to give you a tour of our current facility and explain the exact needs that we're dealing with. But through it all, on our most recent state inspection, we scored 100%. That's because there is and the reason why is because there is no quit in my staff. We maintain over 168 acres in-house. That includes grass cutting, weed eating, bush hogging, while they still perform their normal regular duties. Out of the 7 of my employees, 5 are certified landfill operators through the state of Georgia, which I am also. And these are bunch of great guys, and this past year we were able to add Amanda to our staff. She's our lady scale house operator. But even when people are cussing us out, and it happens, threatening us with bodily harm, one lady actually threw a cell phone at my female operator. We continue to perform our job for the citizens of Paulding County, but I am pleased to report that we have many great citizens that use our facility regularly that appreciate our efforts. And we actually get more compliments than we do complaints. I simply ask our citizens to come to our facility and let me show you what we're working on before you form an opinion or get up behind here and say something about it and disapprove it. Making these improvements will only improve our ability to serve you better and allow us to be good neighbors to the surrounding communities. Now to a more positive side, how do I get that little reset to do a little recycle? I have to have technical assistance. I'm not technically, I don't have a technical assistant. I do, but she's at work. It's my wife. She helps me on a lot of this stuff. But there it is. We were saved by the person in the back. Thank you, Angie. I appreciate it. But now to a more positive side that I want to share with you all is a brief update on our recycling division. You'll see some current numbers there. I did not go to the Ann Littman School of Charts and Pie Charts and Graphs, but this is the best that I could come up with. But it does tell us Ann has his impressive charts, if y'all never, I know y'all noticed them. But you'll notice here on this, it gives you a breakdown in tons of the fiscal year 2017 and 2018. Our county recycling center is located right next to the transfer station. For our citizens, for a complete list of items that we accept, please visit paulding.gov, and if you'll click on the departments and then go to the recycling link, it'll give you our hours of operation, directions, and things that we take. Recycling is an extremely good way to reduce the amount of materials that wind up going into the solid waste stream. As you can see from the charts of those 2 fiscal years, you'll notice an increase in overall tonnage for 2018. We actually received 1,001 tons of materials. And by recycling these materials, we were able to sell these items back to vendors for $97,076.30 to return that money to the general fund. We also saved $45,045 by removing those items from the solid waste stream, so we didn't have to pay to ship them off. And if you add the 2 revenues together, the cost savings and to the sales of the products, it comes out to about $142,000 and some change. Now we keep exploding. With the exploding growth that we have around our center, it's extremely hard to keep up. And once again, our staff is working hard to provide a level of service that is acceptable for the size of our staff and our facility. And most days, the average temperature in our building is 96 degrees, and it's often cooler outside than it is inside. So we work in the extreme heat every day. People say, well, you've got an air conditioner in your break room. Well, folks, let me tell you, there's no work in the break room. It is all in that 96-degree warehouse and are either outside on that gravel with our citizens. We also have we have a full-time executive director for Keep Paulding Beautiful, Mr. Robert Cabrera, who is actually working at the recycling center today, so I can be here to do this. He joined our team and he's accomplished some amazing results. And we need to have him come to the BOC one day and just explain some of this more to you. His leadership has been tremendous. I told my wife last night he accomplished more than a year than I was able to accomplish in 11 years, but he is full-time at that. He doesn't have the additional jobs, and I'm really proud of Robert. And I've attached a summary report, and I've also got some in the very back, and this is a report that we have to send to Keep America Beautiful each year. And some of them are back on the table and taken. These numbers are great. Y'all have had a chance to skim through them. But I would like to give a special thanks to Tim Atchison and his staff at Fleet Maintenance. They keep our machines running so that we can accomplish our mission. And I tell you what, folks, Paulding County has a lot of tired old iron out there that needs to be replaced. But the fleet has gone well above their normal duties to help us on many times coming out on Saturdays or taking us somewhere that we could borrow a backhoe and drive it back out there so we could accomplish our mission. I also want to give a thank you to the sheriff's office for the inmate labor when we get it. It was essential. We're able to supplement our staff through that, which is not very often because they're kind of low down. The numbers are a little low down. But if my staff were here, and maybe they'll get to watch this, I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart because they are the best bunch of motivated people I have ever had the pleasure to work with. They are truly Paulding strong and truly Paulding positive. And if any of you have any questions that I need to answer, I'm going to hang out because I want to be right up front with you and transparent. I want to answer every question that you have and after this meeting. But one more thing, I found a way to deal with angry people. One time a man told me he was going to come out to the landfill and stomp me into the ground. He asked me my name. I just smiled and said, "I'm Frank Baker. I'm your friend." Thank you for that. Any questions? I knew Frank would like that.
Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
I know some of y'all might think that he was overzealous or maybe even exaggerating, but I had an experience sometime back. I was hauling a load in, and in front of me, employees were there, and this guy was using, horrible language referring to this person. And I was on my phone, I was on the truck getting diesel running, but I heard part of it, and I asked him, "What did he say?" And he told me. I would not have took it had I been that employee. I would have turned him around, even if it meant my job, and said, "Get out of here." And I asked Lonnie about how we could do that, and she was, let me know we just couldn't do that to everybody. But they put up with a lot, so I had the privilege, and it was a privilege on a very cold day to go out and work on Saturday, after knowing that the traffic was out in the street, and I wondered how they dealt with that. And I've had calls saying, "Hey, I just went to the dump over there, this guy took $10 and he put it in his pocket. He didn't put it in the building." So this is the way that works. When you come through and they're backed up, it's your lucky day. Because what they'll do, they say, "We're not going to wait, just give me $10 and go." Well, they put the money here and then put it in the building lately. And I did that personally. Of course, they didn't know I was a commissioner. They thought I was working at the landfill, and that was fine. And so I experienced it with them. And these guys do a great job day in and day out. And I realized the facility itself is dilapidated. It's broke down. Scott had a drone plan at one time to make some things, but you really do need to go out and examine it for yourself before you make judgments on what we should or shouldn't do out there. Thank you, Tom.
Can I just say one more thing? I'm addressing that money issue. What we do now, especially on Saturdays, when you come out there, our people will be identified by a safety vest, and the new ones that'll say Paulding County will be here soon on the back. We pre-print tickets. So every ticket, when a person comes through, when we take their $10, regardless if you want that receipt or not, you're getting it. That counts for the money. There's no dishonesty in my staff, I promise you. They're a great bunch of people. Most of them own 30, 40 acres, and they're working out there doing what they want to do. You know what I'm saying? These are not people that need to steal or try to cheat the county. They are a great bunch of people. That issue has been resolved, and we hope it has been. If anybody has any questions or questions about that, please let me know. We want to be straight up at 6 o'clock always.
Well, and one of the reasons that you're doing what you're doing the way you have to do it is because of the facility that you're working with, and we've got to get those folks off the road. This is where we go back to talking about the budget, and we talk about the cost of doing business. And when you go through a 10-year period and you don't update some things that you need updated, eventually you have to pay. I mean,
eventually 25 years.
That's right. You can, but I'm talking about the last 10 years of your budget. You have gone 25 years, and your facility is falling apart. We have to take care of it. So, we can talk about rolling back and not collecting that other money. If you look at the 10-year digest of the school system, you're going to find out that they're in the exact same spot 10 years ago where they were. They're within $500,000 of collecting taxes of the same amount right now today. Okay, they're in the same spot we're in. But we're gonna have to do something to that facility one way or another. It's either gonna come from income that we bring in, or it's gonna come from fund balance, or it's gonna come from a little bit of both. And one thing you're gonna look at is you're gonna see a little fund balance leave, or you're gonna have that 6.5, or you're gonna do a rollback. And I go back to saying, there is a cost to doing business. And we've got to make some improvements to there becomes a time where you got to put the new roof on the house. You just got to put the new roof on the house. You can patch it, you can do what you want to do for years and years, but eventually somebody will come along and help you put the new roof on. So I appreciate your work. You're doing a fantastic job with what you've got. You've never complained. You've always let us know the facts. And let you know whatever you have, you're going to keep moving forward and doing the best you can with what you got. And I appreciate it. Just let everybody know that, you know, you're Frank Baker and you're the
Well, we have accomplished so much for so long with so little, we can accomplish almost anything with nothing. Have a great day.
Yeah, Tom, you didn't mention it, but I think it's worthy of comment that we're authorized, correct me if I'm wrong, to have 2 additional transfer stations.
Yes, sir. Our future solid waste plan calls for 2 additional transfer stations and 2 recycling centers. Braswell, Hiram, Dallas, and Paulding County have all signed off on these. And that is the future. So that's something we're going to have to deal with down the road. But right now, we need to fix what we've got to get us to that next level.
Okay, on public participation. On public participation on agenda items, we have Mr. Joel Larkin, who signed up to talk about the Rickshaw real estate, old business number 1.
You want to defer that to when you bring that up?
No, people who sign up for agenda items go to speak at this time.
Good morning, I'm Joel Larkin of Sam's Larkin, Huffman Valley in Marietta. Pleased to be here on behalf of Rickshaw today. We've been before you a couple times previously and have discussed this pending rezoning action. We got pretty close to a resolution of it before. There were a number of different conditions that were proposed by staff and the planning commission, and I believe we got down to where there's 2 conditions that the applicant has difficulty with. And I don't know if you've received it, but I filed yesterday an amended and restated constitutional objection. Did y'all receive that? I think it was in your pack. All right. The 2 items that we have difficulty with are attempts to place per lot assessments on this development for water and for traffic improvements. And backing up to this zoning, this is a zoning that has been filed from R2 to PRD, and it's not been filed in an effort to increase the yield or change the character of the area. The applicant is extending an existing road through Nature Walk, through a PRD neighborhood, into this R2 zone property. And the purpose of the rezoning application is to allow him to adopt the development standards from the PRD, the setback and other standards, so that we'll have a uniform development. The yield is essentially the same. Don't know exactly until you plat it out, but he's not trying to increase the yield that he can get. What he's trying to do is to have a uniform neighborhood. And the way your staff is currently handling this is, if you come in for development under the existing zoning, they're not trying to assess you these per lot fees, particularly for water. But if you change the zoning, regardless of what you've done to the yield, they're attempting to recoup capital investments that are already being recouped in the tap-on and other fees. And it's our position that this is unfair, and it creates an unfair competitive disadvantage. This builder would have to charge $2,500 more for each home here that other builders on currently zoned properties don't have to charge. In addition to the disadvantageous of it, it's our position that this is an illegal exaction of an impact fee. The legislature in 1990 adopted a statewide impact fee ordinance, and it sets out a manner that the county can evaluate system improvements and assess them on a pro rata basis to
to all users in all new development. And it's a complicated process, but it's designed to promote fairness. And the county hasn't chosen to do that. Instead, they're trying to recoup it on a selective basis from selected individuals. And we think that violates both the Constitution and the impact fee ordinance. So we're prepared to move forward with the zoning to promote the uniformity, but if we can't get the uniformity without these additional assessments, then I think the developer will probably move forward and develop it into the R2, which won't necessarily be the best result for the county, because you'll have a different look for the neighborhood that'll be a little bit out of character. And we're prepared during your discussion to respond to any questions that you have. Mr. Stevenson's here also.
Thank you, Mr. Larkin. And Mr. Stevenson also signed up. Would you still like to come forward?
I'll wait for questions.
If you have anything, you want to come up and say it, now's really the time for that on public participation. If we have a question we choose to ask, we could do that. I just don't want that part to get, we go on by and you don't have an opportunity to speak.
Right. There won't be, there may not be any questions.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Okay, under old business, discuss action 2017-10-Zulu application about. Wait, I skipped the consent agenda. Trying to get ahead here. Consent agenda, discuss action on 2 consent agenda items. Number 1 is to reappoint Dan Collins to the Paulding County Civil Service Board for the 4-year term ending December 31st, 2020. And number 2 is to appoint Nicole Whalen to the Paulding County Board of Ethics with a term ending December 31st, 2021. Would any of the commissioners like to move that to a regular business? Moving on to old business now, discuss action on 2017-10-Z application by Rickshaw Real Estate, LLC, to rezone approximately 50.57 acres from R2 suburban residential to PRD planned residential development for subdivision development in Seven Hills. Property is located on land lots 484, 485, 524, 525, and 556, District 3, Section 3, north of Nature Walk Parkway, east of Williams Road. Post 4, the recommendation by the Planning Committee, by the Planning Board, is approval 501 with 19 stipulations. It was tabled from the December 12, 2017 Board of Commissioners meeting and the March 13, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting. Ms. Littman to report and update us.
Is this working? Okay. I don't really have any update on this. As you stated, the Planning Commission did provide a recommendation. Mr. Robinson, who's Planning and Zoning Manager, is also here. I'll just be happy to answer any questions that you may have about the stipulations, and I will defer to Skipper about some of the legal questions that were brought up. About impact fees, especially.
Any questions? All right, we'll move forward.
Hang on. Well, last time I said hang on earlier, we had all kinds of people. So I just want to make sure we don't pass this by. It's something that we need to discuss. Just give it just a second. I would like to say that this was brought before, I believe in the process, and was brought before the Planning and Zoning Board. And we had another applicant that day, if I can remember correctly, but that's been a long time, Chris. We had another applicant that day that had some of the same stipulations. And the other applicant made the comment, it's hard to tell him what to do and him accept it and let the next applicant, which is this one, not go by the same stipulations. And so I know there's several things that can be done, and we vote on this tonight. And if the applicant on this needs to talk to anybody today after the meeting, or if we could get done with the 2 o'clock meeting, if there's anything you want to discuss, so that we bring it up for discussion tonight, you're more than welcome to. But the other applicant that went through that zoning process agreed for those stipulations. And I personally am just one vote, but I'm just letting you know, I can't change what was done. I can't change something for you that we already approved for somebody else. And I just want you to know where I stand before 7 o'clock comes tonight. And so if you need to move in a different direction, or if you need to talk to us or give us a call, whatever needs to happen, I just want you to be aware of it. I don't want you to say later, well, you didn't tell me. So I'm letting you know where I stand on it. And I thank the staff, all of our staff, our DOT or water or community development, that work together on these applications, because they look at what's going on there today and what kind of impact it's going to have in the future on down the road. We can say we're just extending the road, but today we're extending that road. Tomorrow, somebody may want to extend that road again. Next year, somebody may want to extend that road. And all I know is 10 years from now, we might have just a real long extended road with no other way to get out. And I want us to be careful, do our due diligence, do what we need to do. So if you need to talk to me later today, just feel free to. I plan to be here all day, and I may be busy from now till the 2 o'clock meeting, but give me a call, let's talk. But I wanted you to know where I stood before 7 o'clock tonight. I don't want you to say, well, you didn't let me know. So anyway.
I have one question. Mr. Larkin, I know that one of the stipulations that you have an issue with is number 9. Which is the other one?
I don't have a new document in front of me, but at the last meeting, there were 2 DOT stipulations, and the recommendation was made, if I recall, that they be combined into a single one, but there was an effort to extract $1,500 per lot for DOT contributions. And that's one stipulation. The other one is if I remember the
The other
form
one is
still.
the Braswell Mountain, that's the number 9. I know which one that one is. I don't know if
Unless that's
I've
been
seen the
rewritten.
DOT one.
Number 6 is owner developer agrees to enter into a development agreement with Paulding County to mitigate traffic concerns. I think that would be the one that's referred to.
Has that been addressed as of now?
It has not been resolved. And on the Braswell Mountain, unless it's been changed, it's kind of I would say, a little bit of a sleight of hand, the way that's typically handled. The Friday before Planning Commission hearing, we typically get a set of recommendations, and it usually says the applicant will participate in the Braswell something program. And if you ask questions, you learn what that means is the applicant will make a donation on top of the tap fee of $1,000 per lot. So when we got that condition last time, we did an open records request into the underlying documents for the Braswell Mountain improvements, and it's clear from those documents that that was done in a well thought out manner where they determined the cost of infrastructure to develop that project, and they looked at the lots, not just zoning lots, but all the lots to be developed, and they determined that would be in the tap fee, which is the proper way to handle it. You mentioned fairness. But here instead what they're doing is they're only imposing it on anyone who goes through rezoning for any reason and in any manner. So if I've got 1,000 lots that are there approved but not built, I don't pay $1,000 per lot. But if I come in and rezone, even if I don't change the number of lots, now I'm hit with a $1,000 per lot fee. And that's what the impact fee ordinance was designed to avoid. You're only supposed to be assessed for things that specifically relate to your project and not system-wide. Now, an applicant can always agree voluntarily, as that other applicant may have done, if they were aware of what that condition meant. I'm not sure they were. I saw that hearing. I don't recall that they ever specifically said, I understand I'm paying you $1,000 per lot. But even if they did, that was a voluntary choice on their part. What we're trying to do is to get you to do the fair thing and that's to assess it countywide on all the lots as they develop, and not just new lots that have some type of change in zone.
Okay, I'm going to let Ms. Ashton speak.
The other development being referred to was fully aware of that $1,000. It had been completely discussed with him beforehand, and he was agreeable to that stipulation. In my research, this has been equitably applied in every residential rezoning, dating back over about 10 years. And so it has been equitably included in rezonings over time. That's all I just wanted to add.
Is this went into effect in 2007, and then anything forward of that, then we applied this, is that right? If they wanted to rezone in 2007, so anything that's not having to do this was something that was zoned before 2007?
That's correct.
But everybody has complied with it from that point on?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, that was a period of time when there were no rezoning. So to say it applied to all of them, remember, rezoning stopped in 2007.
I guess you're right. There hasn't been not a whole lot of rezonings. I think the only one that I know of is one recently. They accepted the stipulations and went along with it. Is that correct?
There were others prior to that. I'm sorry, I didn't bring that
Okay, but there
with
are
me to
others.
the meeting, but there were others that this has been applied to over the years. This is the two that have come through in most recently are not the first. And they are not. I can get you that information.
I'm sort of picking up that Mr. Stevens feels like he's been treated unfairly, but this is not true.
No, sir. This is quite typical of our interactions. Thank you.
So there's several different options here, correct? Mark and myself talked about it today and last night. And I guess we got to figure out which option Mr. Stevens wants to take, and then we got to figure out what we want to do.
Any more comments?
At one point, I don't know if we really need to talk about this. At one point, I think that this board is going to be changed as of January 1. And, we know that maybe that's going to play into this. So we're going to have to do what we think is the board, present board today, to do the right thing for everybody. Like I said, there's several different options that can get Mr. Stevens from today to January 1. We'll just let that lie on him.
The only thing we have left is new business. I've got 11:51. If you want to synchronize your watches, I'm going to make a motion, and hopefully I'll get a second, that we adjourn for 5 minutes for a bathroom break. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, we'll start back at 11:56. When we prepare for the public hearing, I'm going to ask Ms. Pollard to give the information that she has on the budget at this time.
Great. This one's a little more detailed. So we have the millage rate hearing, that's funding the budget. This is specifically where the other revenues come from and what the other, where the expenses go. So I've got a couple of handouts that I did in the back, and I think they're all pretty important. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. As most of you know, we could be here till 2 o'clock. I love every bit of going through this for that long, but I'll try to refrain myself. But I have a draft budget that everybody should have a copy of. If you don't, there's some more hopefully in the back. And it will, on the first column is the original budget, that's what you adopted at this time last year. The final column is what is in place, including any outstanding encumbrances for the prior year, and then your actuals, obviously what your actuals for 18 and for 17. So we have a few additional revenues in fiscal year 2018. This is not complete. We're closing out the year, so these numbers will change. I think it's got most everything in it, but it will not be exact. We have some increase in other taxes. Those specifically are your title ad valorem or the bulk title ad valorem and sales tax. Yay, shop hauling, that works great. We show $1 million in additional revenue this year because people shopped and hauling. And one of the large ones is the intergovernmental category. That's largely LMIG. So those are specific to BOT projects. Those are not budgeted for. The expense is not budgeted for. So that's something that you're going to, it's going to come out when we go through the exact budget for 2019. But you do incur it. You do receive the funds and you do spend funds. Investment income, interest rates are rising. So on the amount that we have invested, we do see some more interest than we have in previous. They give you money for your budget. As you look throughout the departments, you're going to see some that are over 100%. That's primarily because all of the salaries are budgeted in one lump sum, and the leave buyback is budgeted in one lump sum. And there are several other, those are the two large ones, but there may be a few others that are budgeted in lump, and then they're spread out throughout the year as we know specifically where those are going to go. So I'll have budget amendments that come back to you in August, and it won't be to approve any additional expenditures, but it will be to fix that. So it'll be to move those funds around. If you look over to the last page, you will see almost halfway down, you'll see total expenditures under the 2018 column is 66.6 million. Excess of revenues were 4 million. And then if you look down to the next section, proceeds from sale of assets, there's some land in there as well as some surplus property that we auction off through gov deals if anybody's interested in purchasing some of that surplus property, surplus equipment. Then you have operating transfers out. This corrects a few things that we've done over the past few years, and so I just want to bring those to your attention because they'll be in your budget amendments as well. So you don't have any surprises at that time. Landfill, $750,000. We purchased $550,000 worth of equipment this year. Landfill doesn't bring in enough money to pay for that purchase of equipment, so it's purchased through the general fund. This transfers it to the landfill to make that purchase. We have jail land, $2.1 million. Hopefully we'll get some of that money back once the jail project is complete. If it comes in under, you'll be able to replenish some of that money, but currently it comes out of your fund balance. Water admin, when we talked a little bit about the GSP, when we took the GSP from the water system and replaced it and put a governmental function in there, the GSP, we have to reimburse the enterprise fund for that purchase. We haven't done that yet because they weren't actively pursuing another space. So now they are, and that money needs to be put towards that problem. Water lines, how we pay for overlook that we looked at earlier. We had $500,000 from water system for each year, so we put $500 for 2018, $500 for 2019 in the recent water projects, but the projects were almost $1.5 million. So you agreed to put $500,000 of general fund money in that. So that's where that brings us to $4.3 million of transfers, which brings the overall balance to almost neutral. So it's $159,000 use of fund balance. I think that'll work itself out. But it could go either way. We have currently $4 million worth of purchase orders that are obligations that we have outstanding June 30th that we have not incurred yet. So that's going to be in addition to this coming budget. So if you adopt a budget at $73 million and you have those outstanding obligations that roll over, you're actually going to have a budget, as you do here from original to final, of $77 million. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we are today, because you need to know, I felt like you needed to know that to know how to approach the budget for this upcoming year. So on the second handout, it looks like this is the budget itself. There are several pages to it. It's been online since June 1st for review. A lot thicker a good bit thicker document. It's got more information about each department as far as number of employees and that kind of thing. But I tried to put the highlights here and not get too in the weeds. First page, general fund, that's M&O, that's what we had the millage rate for. The millage rate hearing for earlier was for that $29 million that you see on the top of that line. I'm going to come back to that, to the general fund, and right now I'm going to cover the other columns in that budget. So fire, that's 3.1 mills. We're currently paying for fire. This budget includes 9 additional firemen. We are looking at opening an additional fire station, and it primarily provides for operations. We have recently had used some of it for capital purchases as well. 911, obviously you pay $1.50 on your telephone lines to provide that service. It has functioned, but we're not operating at full staff in 911 right now, and if we do, it could take some general fund dollars. I don't have it in here because I'm not sure that they'll get up to full staff, as well as the legislature last year made some changes to 911, which should increase those revenues to help offset that. But there's a little bit of unknown there. Special court funds, those are held with constitutional officers and their specific purposes, used for a specific purpose. Most of the time they're attached to a fine. And the law tells us how you're going to collect it, how much you're going to collect, and what you're going to spend it on. Solid waste, that's our landfill. SLOST is capital projects. That's 1% sales tax that we have that funds DOT, public safety, recreation, economic development, as well as the cities. Both receive a fraction of that. Debt service. That funds the debt for the county. So your bonded interest rate currently is at 2.07. I think we need to spend a little bit of time here. If you look at the very last page of the handout, I'll give you a detail of what your general obligation debt is. So highlighted in yellow, you'll see that we're going to pay debt of $9,739,000. That's inclusive of the jail bonds. And the jail bonds are about $3.8 million annually. That's through 2048 is when those bonds pay off.
3.8.
3.8 is the annual debt service, average debt service. It is included. You are paying it this year. At this point, we have not, we've let the millage rate alone. The millage rate, if you take the 9.7 and you turn the page to your revenue bonds component units, this is a list of all the debt that we're paying. The component unit debt is $1.8 million. That does not include the 2012B, which is the water and sewer, the sewer plant. That is $500,000. But the total that we are actually paying out of debt service is $1.8 million for the revenue bonds. Total is $11.5 million. That's what you've got to have to pay the debt for the county in the upcoming year. 2.07 mils will get you there. So we're going to use a little bit of fund balance, or this proposes that we use a little bit of fund balance to get us there. The 2.07 mills brings in 9.5 million. And if you were to bring in enough to cover the debt service, you need 2.5 mils. When we went to market for the jail bonds, we looked at it and it's within a mil. So a mil now is worth 4.5, your debt service is 3.8. So it's just under that because of the value of the house, of the digest going up. So that's one thing to be considered because you do use some fund balance in debt service in this budget to get through. If you cover it next year, your citizens will see a jail coming out of the ground. It will be very obvious what that money is being paid used for. That's a proposal. You could do either one. You could impose it now or you could impose it. It will have to be done next year. CIP, that $40 million is the jail, and that's pretty much the bond proceeds that we're going to, it's not a decrease in the budget. It appears that way here, but it's just the use of those funds that have already been borrowed. And then the water and sewer, that's flexible. There's water and sewer is an enterprise fund, and they can only spend what they bring in. We're required for that service coverage requirements. So there's the annual process like we do for general fund isn't as important for water and sewer because you have to look at those every time you award something on the agenda. You need to look and see if they can afford that to be able to move forward with the revenues that they have coming in. So, all that makes sense? Any questions on the funds? And I'm going to go back to the general fund budget unless you have questions. Okay, so the revenues on the general fund side going into 2019. Here's the difference. Here's where the revenue projections are. I have projections of $5 million over last year. 2.4 of those is within the property tax, so that's within 6.5. If you were to roll it back, the rollback is 6.079. I don't know how much time, I think we mentioned that earlier or not, but that's a $600,000 increase. So the difference in two is $1.8 million. Your other tax, as I mentioned, this is the title ad valorem tax. So when you purchase a vehicle, you don't pay sales tax anymore on that vehicle. You don't pay ad valorem tax, which has caused our digest to decline some. However, we had last year, we saw a decrease. So if you look at 2016 to 2017, there's a decrease. If you look at 2017 to 2018, there's a large increase. I did talk to Bill a little bit about this, and the increase, the county's portion has increased I believe every year. It's increased several times, with another one planned for July 2019. However, March, April, and May, I have no idea what those are. I don't know what that spike's about. I don't know if you can count on that revenue for next year. My guess is count on assume some, but it makes me nervous to assume all of that increase. Take an average, it averages out to be $400,000 a month for a title ad valorem tax. If you look at that chart, July was below 4, August was right at 4, and on. There's six right at 4 or over, and 6 under. So I have included some. Our availability of fund balance will allow us to not be quite as conservative, but you should know that we may not make our projection. Our projection plan is, our projection right now, I believe, is at 4.8 million, which is $400,000 with assuming this Well, knowing that the state's increasing that percent in 2019, which makes me a little more comfortable with that. Sales tax, that's consistent. So again, Freight Alden, they are shopping Alden. So we're keeping that money here, and those dollars are used to roll back their military. So there's direct advantage there to do that. I have $1 million. Usually, historically, our increase has been $200,000 a year. So we've increased $200,000 between each year. This year, we have $1 million. Could something happen to decline that? It could. Right now, I don't see any reason, and it's consistent. I will tell you that recently I went to a class, and there was one county in the state of Georgia that had a spike in their revenue for sales tax, and it was an error. And they received the money, and the Department of Revenue sent them a notice and said in 60 days you need to return those funds. And so they had to stroke a check, I believe it was about $5 million. I don't want to be there.
Well, you and I talked about that the other day, and that's a scary spot to be, whether you have to stroke that check or they won't pay you for the next so many months.
That's right.
So I think you got to be careful. You can't always count on all of it. You assume you're going to get most of it, but you can't. That's scary.
That's right. It is a little easier to see it happening every month, and it's pretty consistently the same increase month to month. Makes it look realistic. So that being said, that's all the information I have on revenues, and I'll go over to expenses and the changes in the budget, unless y'all have any additional questions or see something that maybe needs to be brought out. Okay, so the expenses. I could have listed every department and give you the difference, and that's in the budget that's online for review. So I didn't think that was real helpful today. So what I did was I listed out some of the things that we've incurred over the past, and to kind of give you an idea, have I included everything? No, but I tried to include the most relevant. So we had salary adjustments. We've discussed that quite a few times, which increased the budget of about $800,000. Those are the adjustments that are already in place. That's not an adjustment to be put in place. The benefits, we had an increase to our benefits, which didn't provide for any additional coverage. Didn't change anything. It was just an additional cost. The 2018 full year of new employees. So last year you adopted some employees, and often what we'll do is we'll stagger those hire dates. We can't hire all at one time anyway. So we'll hire on October 1, January 1, or March 1. So you only get a fraction of the year. So to make those 2018 a full year, you've got to incur $572,000 more dollars. 2019 new employees, the new employees, and those are listed on. So you have your budget, then you turn, it's numbered page 4, and I apologize if it's not, I just took these straight out of the budget document, pages that I wanted to talk about. If you look at your new personnel list, this lists all the departments with personnel and what they are, and it gives you an idea of what the hire date is. Total cost for this year is $676,000. The total cost for next year, so a full annual cost will be $1.5 million. So where I have $517 for last year's employees, I'll have $900 next year. Something you need to know when you're deciding what you're going to do. Additional capital, what I mean by that is you had capital in the budget last year. In 2018's budget, you have capital in the budget this year. The difference is an increase of $400,000. So that's what I'm trying to do, is show you the difference between 2018 and 2019. Then we have some additional operational costs. So I looked through all the departments and to see who had, again, some have decreases, some have more significant than other increases. But in the budget that we're talking about, the budget we're looking at, I had insurance increase of $300,000. I now have those actual bills in hand. So I'm not going to need that increase, but I didn't know that in May when we were preparing this. So I've struck that. That's a place where we can make a reduction now. Retirement costs, that has gone up about $100,000. Economic development, I'm not sure, it's my understanding that we don't necessarily, that they're not expecting that, so that's been removed.
Can I say?
Be a clarification that you need.
Can I say something on that? Tabitha and I have talked about that. We kind of got hammered, some of us, for supposedly cutting out economic development at a time where we need to be paying attention to economic development. So, I want to hear the whole truth. A couple of years ago, when Robert came on, we had some extra money in economic development. I'm looking at you because I want you to say, hey, you're wrong if I'm wrong on something, because you and I talked to him. And we had some extra money because we didn't have anybody in economic development running economic development. We went 6 months, 8 months, or whatever, so they had some extra money. We were looking at the budget at the time, and we were looking for everything we could do to trim that budget and get it where we needed to get it. And so Vernon and I talked to Robert Reynolds and said, hey, do you mind if we trim economic development down, I think 70,000, from 200 to 130. So we trimmed it down about $70,000. And we also said we're working on the budget. If something comes up and you need to do something through the year, come to us and we'll just see what we can do. And that was all agreed upon. However, some things have changed there, and we were giving them that $130,000 to run economic development. Well, some things have changed over some time, and now economic development is really the IBA director now. He has become the IBA director. And the IBA has bonds, of which 2011 Series A and Series B, of which we're paying, which I think comes out to roughly $658,711 a year that we're paying. And so, not to bring up anything negative, just to present you with the facts. We have got to get together, and I've asked for it for a year and a half. And I don't have to agree with what we do. I don't have to agree. I don't have to get my way. But Mr. Chairman, we've got to get together with IBA/Airport Authority, whoever is owning which project out there that they're owning, wherever it is, and whoever's in charge of it, on these bonds, because we are paying $658,711 a year for film studio, water tower, corporate hangar, and that's the taxpayers. And then we got some taxpayers upset, throwing rocks, and I can take it, because we have trimmed economic development a couple of years from 200 to 130, and now we're showing it on the screen that we took it out of the budget. Well, we trimmed it from 200 to 130 was agreed upon. And I talked to Tabitha earlier on this budget. I said, we don't need to give them nothing until we sit down and have some sort of an agreement. I don't have to get my way, but the IBA/Airport Authority, whatever, and the Board of Commissioners need to come up with an agreement on what we're doing, because you can't sit there and lease out projects, film studios, and collect $40,000 a month, $480,000 a year, and then have citizens upset because we're going to cut $130,000 out of your budget. The citizens that are upset are paying $658,711 a year for those projects. and I'm accountable to the citizens who elected me to be accountable about this money. And so for them, it may look good, hey, we swapped out $130,000 for $658,711. We need to come up with an agreement, Mr. Chairman, of what we're going to do so that moving forward, whether it's the rest of this year or somebody here next year, has an agreement that, hey, the Board of Commissioners and the IBA agreed this is what they're going to do. IBA is going to do this, Board of Commissioners is going to do this, and we're going to meet somewhere in the middle. But just to sit there and ignore it, and it come up time after time after time after time, it's not right. And so as the chairman of the Board of Commissioners who sits on those two authorities, you really don't have the right to ignore it. You have the responsibility to address it, and we need to work together to do it. Whatever we need to do to work together. Like I said, I don't have to be in 100% agreement, but this board, at least 3 of us, need to vote on doing something in order to facilitate what's going on with those bond payments for the citizens, because we still got a lot of years to pay. And if they're going to sell that film studio, you're selling an asset. You're going to go sell your house, you owe on your mortgage. I'm going to tell you, your mortgage is getting paid first. If they're going to sell that film studio, that money needs to come back to the taxpayers to pay that. If that money's not going to come back to the taxpayers to pay it, the people sitting up here today, 5 of us, need to have some sort of an agreement and understanding that we've worked something out with them. And it has been 1 year and 7 months I've asked for that, and I would like to see that resolved. In the next 90 days, I'd like to see it resolved. And if not, then I'll just give a report that, hey, we can't resolve it. But I don't want somebody throwing stones about the 130 when we're actually paying $658,000. I just want us to agree. We can agree to disagree, but let's agree on something to get that taken care of so that everybody can work together to do what we need to do. But we can't ignore the issue. And the issue is there's $658,000 of taxpayer dollars that we're spending each year to fund their projects. Some of them, which I believe, and I'm being as cordial and as nice as I can be, are pipe dreams. And that's what I don't believe in as a commissioner. I don't believe that that's our job to give somebody money so that they can go do something with it that they want to do, and those people aren't accountable to the taxpayers. I'm being nailed for the $70,000 decrease, but trust me, folks, it's a $658,000 increase. So let's please work on that. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening to me again. Putting it out there.
Okay, and then Deidre touched on elections this morning a little bit. She has currently an operational increase of $81,000. Last year she had primary election, and that was the only one. This year she had the runoff, which she's already incurred those costs, and she will have the November election, which is an increased cost. Now, she reported to you that she can do that for less expensive. She plans to do that. How much to add additional Saturday voting? She's got an increased cost, so the net of those two, I'm not sure what those are. She didn't really feel she could commit, that she'd come in something less than $81,000. Information technology. A few years ago, we entered into some contracts. We had an employee or so leave, and we entered into a couple of professional contracts as well as a FiberNet contract. Those are annual, and it's at a rate of $100,000 increase to the year. Juvenile court, that's a guardian ad litem, so that's an attorney that represents the child, and Lonnie might give us more specifics on the details of what that includes. I might get in trouble if I try to describe it, but it's in addition to the juvenile court cost of $45,000. Sheriff's Office operations has an additional $200,000. There were hardware licenses that are required and necessary, as well as additional equipment costs. Transportation is $1.2 million. We and you can read it. In the past, some of what we've done is paid the LMIG match out of SPOS dollars. Well, your LMIG match is about $600,000, $25,000 and $600,000. If you pay that out of SPOS dollars, that reduces the projects that you can do. And we'll look at more of why that's such an increase and how that could impact your SPOS dollars more than you mean for it to if you pay for it out of SPOS, but it's an option. Stormwater, we put the service back last year. We had a minimal service. We tried to restore the service to what it should be for the growth of the county. If you'll remember, we had about 800 last year, and we've got a little over $1 million this year. So that's $250,000 to put that back. Parks and Rec has additional park maintenance. We've added, there's some of that at Burnt Hickory, some park maintenance. Veterans Park has some maintenance. As we add parks, we're going to have additional maintenance, and as those parks age, we're going to have additional maintenance. So that's an improved cost of about $90,000. And the library has an additional cost for the mobile. So they have a bookmobile that basically goes around and transfers books, moves books, we're all within the West Georgia Regional Library System, and additional materials costs. So that's additional books, basically for each one of our 4 libraries, and that's to total of $70,000. Bringing your operational increase to 2.5. Well, my difference between last year and this year is only a little over $5 million. So I obviously have some reductions in other areas, and this doesn't include all of the increases. Again, I just want to give you highlights. Any questions?
Very good. Kevin, I didn't see this last sheet as a handout. I've been studying the budget.
That sheet was not a handout. It's just on the screen.
I'd like to have a copy of it.
I also wanted to mention too, one other thing about some of the handouts. So the new personnel as well as the capital expenditures. There's a list of those. There are costs associated with those, and it also mentions what fund they're being paid for. If they have a 0 beside them, then they're not included. They were requested. They're not included in this portion of the budget. Now, over the past, I don't know, I'm going to say year, we've really talked about level of service pretty heavily, because as you saw in 2011 to 2016, we had reduced services. Well, what we have today is a lot of our departments have citizens that call them and say, well, County XYZ does it, why can't you do it? Why do you have potholes? Why do I ran across one and now my rim's bad on my tire? And all of those are services that we try to provide, and we have as best we can. We are limited sometimes by funding of those services. So if what we're trying to get to, what we would like to get to, and is impacted by the capital projects, is the level of service that the citizen requires. So need versus want, that depends on what the level of service is that you're looking for. If you are, for instance, and not picking on anybody, I don't mean to do that, but since everyone's here and heard the comment about the drone, there's a couple of ways you can look at that. We purchased equipment in here last year to the tune of $90,000 so that we would have better coverage of your meetings and that we could stream them live. Well, this gives Channel 23 the ability to get activities of the government out. So a perfect example is RCR water. So you can go out there and you can see what's going on at the reservoir. You don't have to actually go out there to see it. You can see it online. You can see the jail because we have a camera out there. This gives us the ability to be able to get information about activities that are going on in the county. Maybe they're interested in, but work won't allow them to come. So they'd like to see it. But if that's not a need to the citizens, they don't want to see more or be able to, they can come out, then that becomes a want. But that's different from person to person. The DOT has some weather-related equipment. Well, that again, there again you have a need versus a want. You've got somebody at home that doesn't need to get out, that's not a need. To the working person, that becomes a necessity. So it's level of service is what we're trying to get to, and what the citizens actually want us to provide in that level of service.
Well, we've talked about the meetings and streaming the meetings and a drone. I think it's not only a level of service to provide something for citizens that can't be here or maybe don't want to take the time to be here, but yet they can watch what's going on live here now. But you talk about a drone, and I can understand the citizens having a different opinion about that, but a lot of it is because we have worked hard to open up government. We want you to see what's going on, good, bad, and different. We want you to see the business of the county right here. And that's why we talk about some of the things we talk about. It may not always be the most exciting thing in the world, and some of it may seem like there's some arguing or whatever, or some disagreeing, but you have 5 people. I always say when I go at home tonight, there'll be 4 of us at the dinner table, and I'm sure not everybody's going to be happy about everything. But it also does another thing, that when you stream live these meetings, when you've got the camera on top of the building looking at your jail site being built, when you've got a drone that you can go out and you can do what you need to do out at the reservoir in different locations to let the public know what's going on. It informs the public, it lets them know where their tax dollars are being spent, and it helps the employees because we don't get those phone calls asking those questions because a lot of them are already answered, which allows us to get busy and do the work of the citizens again. And I hope that what it does in the long run is it makes for a more positively positive and upbeat about, hey, what's going on. Hey, they're not hiding nothing. There's a camera on the building. You can see what's going on in the jail. Hopefully all those construction workers will be right. All right. Hopefully we've told them there's a camera on top of the building.
Okay, so another important factor of interest, I guess, George Jones and I have had a conversation. A lot of times we want to take the value of the mill this year and compare it to the value of the mill at its height in 2008. Well, that's great, but you can't forget the increased costs that have occurred from 2008 until 2018 budget. 2018 digest feeding 2019 budget. So George put together a few interesting facts. And again, our population numbers obviously are estimated. So you have an increased population, you have 100 additional miles, you have your cost of asphalt per road mile has increased $40,000. Your riprap, $10 increase, 62%. That's quite an increase on DOT. So that affects both your SPOS projects that you can provide as well as your general fund dollars and makes them go up. The other large one, in 2008, we were cutting our own right of way, and now we're contracting 550 miles 4 times a year, and we've done it 2 times a year. We've just gradually increased that over time to $770,000 in annual cost. Turf maintenance, 65 acres within the median. So those are some increased costs that affect that $1.2 million that you saw in DOT's budget for the current year.
Sure looks good, though.
It looks good.
It looks good.
It's a service that's expected.
It sure is.
So, again,
You don't believe
level
it,
of
don't
service.
do it. I can
Level
tell
of
you
service.
it's expected.
And we'll open it up to public comment.
So I will officially call the public hearing portion of the budget to convene. So any citizens, we've narrowed the field a little bit, but hopefully there will be someone in the audience here that would like to give their opinion or give their thoughts on the budget for 2019. Remember, Cobb County had over 50 people still.
I'll say two things today, not specifically related to this budget, but one, a comment was made about the equipment purchase we made for the cameras and upgrading the system in this room, and I have had, I can't even count the number of comments and the expressed appreciation that has been mentioned when I've been talking to people about their ability to be able to turn this meeting on while they're at their desk working and keep an ear on this while they're doing their regular business. And so I was excited and I'm glad to see this board do that. The other thing we just mentioned, mowing, and I was driving through a county around the 4th of July. It wasn't our county, and I won't say which county it was because I know those commissioners and I appreciate them. But there's a, out in Dallas along 278, they put up those American flags so far apart. I was going to a county that hadn't done that, but the grass was 2 feet tall, and you can appreciate the effort and the patriotism, but it just looked, it didn't look great. And so I said I really appreciate that mowing and the work that's been done by this board to make things look good. Because as they look good, people come in and we're down here. It has a good effect.
I love the focus on service, and Kevin and others have talked about the percentage. We are an organization, a governmental organization, who's in the service business. And we have employees that make up 62% of our entire budget is salary and benefits for people to provide service. But another thing I think we often overlook in talking about a budget is the projects that we need to do. The projects like sewer extension, so that Longhorn wants to move up at Crossroads. There's not going to come without sewer. So the ability to have money available, or at least some funds available, to do water distribution, one of Tony's passions and mine also, or to do a conference center or to do aquatic center. That I've had tons of citizens talk about how they would use that, whether they're scuba divers and just want to practice, or whether they're our high school swim teams, or just for pleasure and exercise. So, in my view, all we're doing is, we're maintaining a basic level of service. But, my vision is that we would be able to put some dollars aside and bring that sewer, closer to where it's needed for companies to be able to come in and expand, and then therefore the jobs are created out of that. So, level of service is great, and that's basically what we do. But I think there's a lot higher goals that we have personally. I'd encourage anybody else to come up. All right, well, I'm going to close out the public hearing unless here otherwise, and extend it. I know everybody's getting hungry. So we'll move on to new business number 2, which is discuss action to approve contract services between Paulding County and Shepherd's Rest Ministries Incorporated, provide shelter and services for battered women and children. And Catherine Melton, she's hung on a long time here this morning. Thanks for being here, Dr. Melton.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is a continuation of an agreement that y'all have had with Dr. Melton and her group. And it's specific to the uniqueness of it, is it's specific for use of a shelter for the battered women and children that they come up from time to time here in Paulding and need assistance. So again, it's a continuation of what we've done in the past. And I'll be happy to take any questions. And Dr. Melton's here. If you have any questions for her.
20 years old now.
And they do the TPOs.
Yes, additionally they do that, and I have some direct knowledge of that, being in the court system as long as I had. So I've known Dr. Melton now, I guess now running on 6 years, and she's always done a really great job with that service. And additionally, the service that we're talking about today, specifically for this this contract, is for the shelter aspect of it. So, but she not only assists the court system out, but she also assists the sheriff's office, and I know the sheriff was here a little bit. Oh, I think he's still back there in the back. And so, it is a service that the sheriff's office does get assistance from too, from time to time, and there definitely is a need for it. And she is unique because she's the only one that's doing that for us here in Paulding County.
Very good. Class act.
Next, thank you for your work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
New business number 3 is discuss action to approve the Board of Commissioners to directly purchase ductile iron pipe and fittings from American Ductile Iron Pipe Company for up to $2,500,000 for the Richland Creek Water Supply Program Phase 2 transmission main and the booster pump station project. Thanks for you hanging in here so long.
You bet. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is related to the Phase 2 pipeline and booster station project that was awarded back in May to Garney Construction. And in their contract, we have provisions where if the county elected to, that the county would direct purchase the pipe, because if you directly purchase it, you save on the sales tax, the state sales tax, and you don't have to pay that. If the contractor purchases it, then the project would incur it, and the county would have to pay it through the contract. So the provisions were in their contract. We did this on the Phase 1 pipeline. It's worked very well. You save about 7%. So on the $2.5 million, it's about $175,000. So it's a significant savings. And the way the contract is written, there's no additional risk to the county. They still have to handle the ordering, the shop drawings, the logistics, the delivery, all of those same services the contractor has to provide. So there's no additional risk to you. It's just savings. So we're recommending that you elect to move forward with that. We don't have the finalized number, but it could be up to $2.5 million. They're finalizing the lay schedule as it is now, but it'll be somewhere between $2 and $2.5 million. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much. New business number 4 is discuss action to approve the Board of Commissioners directly purchase the booster pump station from EFI for $2,293,560.83 for the Richland Creek Water Supply Program Phase 2 transmission main booster pump station project.
Yes, and this is the exact same thing, but the other component is the booster pump station. So the two large material components are the pipeline, and then this is the booster pump station. It's a packaged booster pump station that's basically assembled at the factory, shipped in several different components, and assembled on site. It'll be a building that resides beyond the DDS facility on the backside of the Watson complex. So once again, this was actually pre-selected by the county, pre-negotiated to be part of the contract, and the provision was within the Garney contract to allow the county to directly purchase, and all of the logistical coordination still falls on the contractor, so no additional risk associated with this to the county as well. This will save about $161,000 with the 7% sales tax savings, so we're recommending to move forward with that and save that money as well. For both of these items, the Garney contract will be reduced because the county is going to be directly purchasing those, so there'll be a negative change order that's issued to reduce their total contract amount accordingly. Any questions?
It's a no-brainer.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much.
New business number 5 is discuss action to approve the FAA federal tentative funding of $150,000 for an estimated $13,888 Paulding County Airport Authority match for design, primary surface improvement, and additional wetlands mitigation. I think everyone received the email a couple of days ago with the letter from Commissioner McMurray, Georgia DOT, that was signed by Intermodal Director Carol Comer, which spells this out. It is just one of the steps of the process. About all I can say. Mr. Tibbetts is here from the airport as the director of the airport. if anybody has any questions for me or him.
Okay, I'll just briefly add that I believe everybody's aware that the way Georgia handles the FAA money, we are what's known as a block grant state. So all of the FAA grant money for your general aviation airports in the state of Georgia is given to Georgia DOT, and they manage those grants on behalf of both the state of Georgia and the FAA. So they have a goal of issuing one and only one contract to each airport each year to keep their workload manageable. And each contract might contain multiple grants or multiple projects. Part of that process is at the beginning of the state fiscal year, which is now, they issue what amounts to a budgetary announcement to each of the airports to let them know what to expect during the year. And because there is a match requirement with these grants, they request an acknowledgement from each airport sponsor, basically stating that we commit to the grant and to the match, our percentage of the match. Under the contract that we have, the intergovernmental agreement, we, the airport authority, will be responsible for that match. We're not going to reach out to you. Now, it will be paid for, of course, with the transfer money that comes to us under the terms of that agreement. So in that sense, you are paying for it, but it's under what's already negotiated in the IGA. So basically, every airport gets a minimum of $150,000. Unfortunately, this year, our airport is getting the minimum, the $150,000. We had $600,000 promised to us last year, almost, for the terminal area expansion project, and that was lost due to the lawsuit that we had. The state is waiting to see what's going to happen in the future before they reinstate those funds. So at this time, the only money that we have in play is the $150,000 from the FAA, which is the guaranteed, not guaranteed, but it's the minimum that they give to each airport every year. And our match at that will be $13,888,000, which will be provided by Paulding County Airport Authority. We're not asking for additional funds from your board for that. And I'll be happy. Oh, one other thing, what does that cover? You'll see it's kind of it says design primary surface improvements. The actual grant will be written later in the year, but what they intend is that that money will be spent on improvements to our primary surface. That's the runway and 500 feet on either side. So this could be projects such as moving those dirt hills that we already know are in violation, tree mitigation, marking of the pavement. Our pavement marking is now 10 years old and needs to be remarked. And they're intending for us to use this for design services in preparation for whatever the construction project would be for next year. And that's how Georgia DOT and FAA do it. They tend to split these things up into a design contract and an actual construction contract. And so they're putting us on notice that this year they would like us to focus on designing primary surface improvements for our primary runway. So happy to answer any questions on any of them.
Pretty simple, straightforward.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the conclusion of our regular business. We have the need to go in executive session for personnel and perhaps litigation, pending litigation. So, okay, let's confirm litigation also, and there's no one who's signed up for public participation to precede the executive session. So this time I'll take a motion to go into executive session for the reasons.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for personnel and pending and potential litigation.
Motion by Commissioner Pownell, second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Collette. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned in the executive session. I want to make an announcement here. We are going to recess from executive session, and then after the Planning Commission does their work and business, we will return to executive session as board commissioners, and then come back in and adjourn to regular session after that. That clears mud?
No, there'll be nothing.
We
In
need a
other words, we
motion.
don't have enough time to get done what we need to get done, and we're gonna turn it over to the planning and zoning. So I make a motion that we recess the executive session, and we'll return up here after the planning and zoning meeting to open back up into executive session.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And recessed. Okay, I'll call the work session back to order and report that no action was taken. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourned by Commissioner Crowe, or second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Collette. All those in favor?
See you.